I've woken up from a coma for a week. Plat Chat episode 184. I'm alive. We're all alive. Special guests this week because I think Avril's on a plane and the Wi-Fi on a plane not so great. So we have Mr. Albert Decomode. Yeah. They call him the throat goat. They call him.
Dude, I'm pretty sure this is like the first minute of the video.
Zero.
It's like ruining
COVID.
it's already ruining the fucking retention and guidelines.
No, it's not.
Bot doesn't have to go very
not.
far through this one.
No,
we gotta yeah, I'm the terrible Avril doppelganger replacement.
Terrible Avril doppel. Yeah, look, aka the fucking patient zero for COVID in the Korean house, aka
I never got
shoots
COVID.
more .3s than LeBron James. That's a fact, by the way. You actually were patient zero, don't you?
I think it was
No. I took
absolutely.
2 to 3 tests, and they were all negative when I got back, so I did not have COVID.
No. When you got back, you like patient zero.
No. I still
in the
had
Korean Airbnb.
You were about to say I still had COVID.
You still have symptoms. If I had COVID, I would still be testing positive for it. 100%. COVID doesn't go away in like days.
Maybe not for you, but for me it did.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
I just didn't have
that.
that. It just wasn't COVID. It was the Korean flu is what we're going because there was
Korean flu.
No. 100% at the time there was like an actual flu going through in Korea.
Was there?
There was.
Yes,
There was. And it was called
yes.
COVID-19 in the Airbnb.
No.
Like, straight up.
No.
Who else was patient zero? You were the first one to get sick.
I mean, it's either me or
I said I got sick, but it wasn't COVID. Other people got COVID. I'm actually shocked I didn't get COVID because neither me nor Avast got COVID.
No, I didn't.
No,
you did?
Connor did.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
I did get COVID. As
me.
soon as I got
It
back
wasn't
to the
for me.
States and tested, I
It
was
wasn't for me.
I was no longer really sick by the time I got back to the US, but I tested just to be safe. So I wouldn't go back to the office, and I was like, "Oh, I have COVID." Like 100%. I definitely got COVID.
COVID. My mom
Everybody
just
had COVID
sent me a COVID test or a COVID picture. She has COVID, so that's not cool.
Damn.
But I didn't know that. You know,
Epic.
didn't know that thing still existed. I thought it was.
I thought it was over. I
It's
thought
still-
we were conquered COVID.
I thought we were over this. It's been.
COVID's like Overwatch 2 PV. It was canceled. It's just done.
Yeah,
It
it's
was-
done. It just
The
faded away.
COVID devs,
and,
they
that
changed
was it.
directions. I thought
Yeah, they scrapped it. They scrapped it in development. They're actually we're just getting in COVID invasion missions now.
It's poor marketing, you know. It's hard to overcome those kind of things.
Yeah, Matt Morello was giving a speech at the UN, telling how, hey, the invasion event is still here, everybody, but it's different this time. It's COVID-20. COVID-20. New COVID just dropped. Yeah, so it's going to be a good episode. Obviously, we've got a lot to recap. Obviously, we've been away for a week. Was it a week or 2 weeks?
I think it might be
A
2
little
weeks.
over a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Because we didn't do it last week
Oh, you
because
missed-
of Johnny's
'cause of-
wedding,
Yeah.
Johnny's wedding. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. So it
which
has
is
been
why
2
he's not
weeks.
here.
Where is Johnny? Honeymoon?
He's
He was
in the
like-
honeymoon
he's-
right now. He's
I think he's
lobstering
on a
in
super
Maine.
yacht right now. Or something.
Yeah,
he told-
he's on a super yacht.
He
I
told me he
think.
was in the country. So I don't know what that means. I don't
Yeah,
know which
yeah.
country that means or
He
what country.
specifically said.
Country.
Most
just said
recently, he
in
said,
the
"I'm in the
country."
middle of nowhere in a car in Maine, so good luck."
Ah, okay.
So he's not on the super yacht yet, but he's
Yeah,
he's on the
going to
way.
the super yacht. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's on the way.
I'm sure
to
he's
the-
driving a Bugatti
yacht.
or maybe a
Yeah.
Land Rover.
Oh,
Yeah.
1,000%. Have you seen the new 2023 Bugatti, by the way?
No,
I
Not
don't
at all.
Yeah.
Not even
Oh
Twenty-three
close.
my
Bugatti.
God, Solomon, I'm gonna send you a link.
This is what happens when you give Jack the fucking reins.
Pull
Already,
it up.
we're
Pull it
back
up.
into it, huh?
Look at this. It is crazy looking car. I mean, look, we still got, look. Hey, we had 2 weeks off. We got lots.
Well, remember,
of stuff,
Scott has a hard
including-
out. in
Yeah,
2
I gotta be
hours.
out in 2 hours. So there's a lot
Oh,
to
yeah.
talk about. Oh,
Anyway, look at that
cool.
car. It's
That was
crazy.
pretty
It's like
cool, yeah.
Those
$3
are
million
nice.
or something. So that's what
That's
Johnny's
cheap.
driving right now on the way to the super yacht in Maine.
Okay.
And yeah, I was on a plane, so that's great. I'm glad to have you on, Albert, honestly. First things first, before we get into things, however, I did sit down yesterday and watch a terrible film. The premise of it I thought was really cool, but it turned out to be kind of bad. I don't know if anybody's seen The Last Day on Mars. Anybody
I've
seen
not
that
seen
film?
The Last
No.
Day
Do not
on
see
Mars.
the film.
I've seen The
Do
Martian.
not see it.
Yeah, that was the
that's
last.
insane.
That was the last Mars-related
see
film I
it.
saw, The Martian.
Yeah.
The Martian? Well,
Yeah.
this one sucked. I wouldn't advise it at all. It was terrible. It just turned into a zombie thing, and I thought it was really boring. Although I
spoilers.
like things going into Mars. Just don't watch it. Don't watch it.
Okay.
Watch some other film. I don't know. Guardians of the Galaxy, the new one. But what I realized when I was watching that film, I was like, damn, these guys are so isolated on this ship. It's kind of crazy. There was one thing that I'd need to keep myself sane and keep myself well groomed and trimmed. Yes, that's correct.
Oh, God.
It's
There it is.
it's Manscaped, everybody. It's Manscaped.
There's the read.
Okay.
2 for 2, baby. I have a question. What's more American than a bald eagle? Well, 4th of July just came and went. It's not almost here anymore. It came and went. What's more American? It's there's a lot of things. Fireworks keeping me up until 3 a.m. Barbecues, pool parties, and last but not least, glizzies. Yes, that's right, glizzies. Manscaped happens to be the sponsor of our show today, making sure all of the glizzy gladiators across the nation are groomed to perfection. Look, 4th of July just came and went. You're probably hungover right now if you went out to drink. You know what would be a best purchase right now? It would be a Manscaped kit. The Performance Package 4.0 is out right now, and you can use code PLATCHAT for 20% off. Inside this package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker, the Nose Hair Trimmer, Crop Preserver, Ball Deodorant, Crop Reviver Toner, Performance Boxer Briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies and glizzies. Yes, you can store glizzies in the bag, potentially, probably. I wouldn't advise it, though.
Yeah.
Ill-advised, yeah. I wouldn't store cooked meat in a small bag with electronics. Probably not the best idea. Yeah, so the 4.0, the Lawnmower 4.0, look, it's probably one of the best things ever invented. Let's be real with ourselves here. If they went to Mars with this, maybe they wouldn't have encountered those Mars zombies because they would have been well-groomed and they wouldn't even need to go outside and discover the bacteria that was out there. Look, at the end of the day, what you really need for the 4th of July or for a birthday or a Christmas present is this kit. The 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is also waterproof and has a 400K LED spotlight. So when you're in the dark on Mars with no light, you can use it to shave down there. Yeah. You know, you could shine it at the zombies. They might get a little bit scared, and then you can go back to shaving. Then you can. Look, it does everything.
They put a tactical flashlight on the shaver.
They put a tactical flashlight on the shaver.
Yes, there is a flashlight on it, actually. It's actually very helpful as someone that has received a kit from Manscaped. It actually is nice.
You shave in the pitch black?
Yeah, I do that in complete darkness to ensure that I don't receive any extra blue light radiation. I put on my Reflect sunscreen to make sure I don't get any extra lines as well.
That's good.
So then I use the flashlight of Manscaped, and it's really nice.
Look, they're in space. There it is. There's the astronauts. They're in space. It was relevant. It was relevant.
Do you think it would be annoying to shave in space because your hair would just float around you?
I think it would be easier. No, especially with the skin.
Well, I mean more so like the cleanup logistics theoretically, because you create like a furry atmosphere.
Yes.
I feel like the itch would be pretty unbearable, right? If you're in a suit, like the aftermath.
Well, I'm assuming that you'd be in a spaceship though, so you wouldn't always be in this suit.
Yeah, you're not always in the suit. And you could use their crop preserver ball deodorant spray and the crop reviver to actually help with that itching.
They could travel to space.
And then you could crop dust people with the
crop
deodorant. The hair's got to go somewhere.
Hair's got to go somewhere. And look, at the end of the day, if it does go somewhere, you can scoop it all up in space and just round it out and then put it in the bag if you really need to, because it does come with the travel bag as well.
Oh, wow.
Make sure you use code PLATCHAT for 20% off at manscaped.com. Trust me, your crops, your balls, and everything else down there will thank you. Look, good for your balls. Everything you need to do, and you can do it in space. Is NASA going to use this technology in space? Maybe. Maybe they will if they use code PLATCHAT at manscaped.com for 20% off.
So true. I mean, it is owned by half of Plat Chat. Most people have gotten, I think a lot of us have gotten a Manscaped bag, and we all use it, to be fair. I do not always put my loose hair inside the bag, but I do put like other toiletries inside the bag. And
you're really using it probably
around. Yeah, so it's a very nice bag, honestly. So I will say, and it probably could survive a trip to space, I would think. I think if they could send like tubes of toothpaste, they could send a bag 100%.
Easily. Yeah. What's that story about the Americans trying to invent a pen that worked in space, but
that's dumb. No, it's not that it's fake. It's that it's dumb Reddit bait. It's dumb Reddit
Dumb
bait.
Reddit bait?
That's like
I got Reddit
it's like
baited.
obviously
baited,
like because the thing is you can't use regular graphite because the graphite will theoretically react electrically with like all the components inside the spaceship and cause a fire, and so like it's a whole. That's why you don't use pencils versus a pen. You know, there's a whole thing there. It's Reddit bait. It's Reddit bait. Unlike
Reddit bait.
Manscaped, which is not Reddit bait.
Yeah.
Very true. Not bait. 20% off manscaped.com code PLATCHAT. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. There was a lot of things that ended up happening on our couple of weeks off. One of them being the Overwatch 2 invasion event got revealed. Mr.X Morello was in the studio, the casting studio actually, at the Overwatch League studio with some of the developers. And they revealed the new like PvE kind of experience coming to Overwatch 2 this season. Or not this season, sorry, next season. And they also showed off a lot more to do with the Hero Mastery too, which is kind of sweet. It's basically just what we kind of expected, which is a giant obstacle course, and you can compete for high scores. See how good you are. And yes, they even did a Mercy one using her weapon, which she almost never uses. So pretty epic, honestly.
Fuming.
Jaws punching air as he was watching this. I saw it. We have a live stream of it.
I mean, I just found it funny that, you know, there's a lot of skill in Mercy, Pepe laugh, and
Dude,
flying through the air like that, using your pistol.
I want to see Jack fail at it. I would pay good money to see Jack fail at the Mercy Hero Mastery.
Like, I would,
just
because
so
only
he
rank
can eat his
top
words.
500 Mercies can complete that course.
Dude, nobody in NA is completing the Winston course. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, are you saying white boy primals are not going to make it through?
We got no Winston players over here. I'm sorry. There's no Winston players.
We still have we still got Rhino.
Yeah.
Rhino,
We got
yeah,
Rhino,
that's true.
yep.
We got
Okay.
Rhino, I think. I think I think that's it. I don't
That's
know who
it.
else. I mean, technically Super could do it on stream still.
Yeah, Super, yeah.
Yeah, Super could do it on
My
stream.
content creator. Okay, yeah.
I mean, Kaluj has played a decent enough of Winston, but I don't know. Is he completing it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Is
Not
he
in
complete?
the
Probably
current
not.
state.
He's not getting a high score, that's for sure.
There's gonna be. I'm waiting for the Reddit thread. Like, we're ranked of difficulty. Winston's impossible to finish the Winston course.
It's gonna be like the Sigma
there's
Rock
only
jump.
like 5, right? 4 or 5, I think was like they've only shown 4 or 5, and they said there was only gonna be 4 or 5 or something like that.
But there will be more later down the line, right? So there's, I believe it was like Soj, Mercy, Rhine, Winston, Racer, I think.
I mean, I assume they're gonna release a new one, like one for each hero.
One
right?
per season would
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah, like like a few per season, maybe a couple per season till they like finish everything, and then maybe they update it for some new courses or something like that.
I can't wait to see
oh,
Arissa's. We're just throwing the spears.
This is sick, by the way. Okay, I'm not going to take credit for this, but I did email Scott Mercer like
As he takes
months
credit.
ago, and say like, hey, a profile progression system or some sort of fucking thing where you can track like how much fucking damage you do and how much you think that aren't like hidden away in the fucking stats. Not taking credit for it, but this new profile like mastery system or like prayer progression system I thought was really fucking sick because they actually talked about it on the live stream and said, one thing that we got feedback for in Overwatch 2 is like, we don't feel like we're progressing as players. Like, but then the Overwatch 1 system, and Aaron rightfully pointed out, was almost a completely dead and empty system with just you leveling up and your little border changing, and then you get a loot box every time you level up. That was about it. So they've like redone that whole system and made it so you can actually track like, oh, pin kills, shatter kills, widow headshot kills, and like it levels up. So you can compare yourself against, other people in ranked and your friends.
I think how hollow that system was, but people were still invested in it, shows how successful I think this system is going to be, because it was literally completely irrelevant. Like that number, literally your number just went up and you got nothing for it other than your border changed once every like 1,000 hours. So it's like, I think this will just do really well for the game. Everyone wants to see their stats. It'll be cool to like increase the mastery of the character, being able to put that on your profile. So I think this is like, honestly, out of all the season 6 stuff that I've seen, this is the one I'm most excited for. I actually think it's the most interesting. I think it's going to be the thing that people like the most out of all the systems.
Can we just speak of numbers? Can we just get our numbers back? Unranked, like that'd be great.
Yeah, I assume they're bringing them back as well, right?
Well,
like
aren't
if
they
you're bringing
back
this,
the player
surely
portraits too?
Like-
They're bringing back player portrait stuff, are they not? Like the player
It's
portrait
kind
progression,
like the
of player
borders?
portraits,
the
but
borders.
it's
Yeah, they're
like
bringing back the borders for
emblems
player
and shit,
portraits,
right?
are they not? Which they removed going into Overwatch 2, essentially. So there's a chance. There's always a chance they could bring it back. I feel like they should take some inspiration. If they're doing this, like we're stat tracking now, they should just take inspiration from what like CS and TF2 does and also give you an extra option for customizability and start adding like different weapon skins, and the weapon skins can be like stat track.
Stat track is huge for the game. Yeah,
yeah.
people love that shit.
I feel like that's like a really easy thing that could be done that has not really been explored yet with Overwatch. Obviously, it's harder because like weapon skins are a little bit less. It's like the whole Overwatch skins in general, like they're not as like in your face per se. But like even if it's just a stat track weapon, if you die by someone and you can show like a little pop up of like this has X many stats when you die by it, like that's still like an extra bit of fun you can do with that. That they're gonna add progression.
I would love to see how many times Jaws is being killed by a Mercy pistol. Like when he dies to a Mercy player who glocks him down, I would love for Jack to have to like watch that as like the Mercy player has like 200 kills. Like it's just awesome for the game. Like I think Apex Legends does it the best with their like borders and that kind of stuff. And it's just like, just really cool. It's free money and you can put that stuff in the battle pass and it's such a low lift.
The banner system in Apex was the thing that I basically suggested to Team 4 was like, hey, just use all the stats that you already have and then have little banners on your profile that say like, oh, you've done this much healing as Ana and you've this many nanos, this many nano assists, and like Widowmaker, headshot accuracy maybe, or like something like that. Because just anything to make the profile more customizable, because right now it is very like bare bones. Also, just to touch on the player level and how empty the old system was, I don't know if people really miss the old level shit or if they just miss the free loot box every one level. Like that's the instant thought I had when Aaron said that, was like, I'm not sure if it's people missing like the actual level of the portrait going up, which is cool in its own right, but yet again, very bare bones, or do they just miss the fucking loot box that they get every single time they level up? That was like the first thought that popped into my head.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't opened a loot box in years.
Yeah, so
yeah, I mean,
I think I've just been collecting. Like number just goes up. I think
the last thing that I actually bothered with this bit was is getting a hunter skin before they go offline.
Yeah,
that's it. Which technically is not really a loot box. Like so, like that's because I remember even back in like 2017, back when Danteh was still fucking playing the game.
Yeah,
you have like 12,000 loot boxes.
Yeah,
he didn't open, you know.
I ended up like doing. You had the trick where if you just held down spacebar, you would do it. So what I would do is when I was streaming and I was going AFK, I put my phone on my keyboard and walk away, and that's just free content right there because people love watching me open duplicates of the same thing over and over again when I open loot boxes.
But people do like free stuff. They do want the free.
Yeah,
I mean,
free
that is a central complaint for a majority of the monetization aspect.
And that's why, because I don't think we're like representative of that kind of audience. So that's why my initial thought was like, oh, hey, I think they just missed the loot boxes, actually, not the actual player portrait level. But it's cool that we're actually getting it back. Let's talk about the actual PvE that they showed off, because they showed like an expanded like King's Row, which I thought was quite cool. So a map everybody's very familiar with at this point, and they're like expanding it to help with the PvE. There's been some like, I don't know, there's been some like positive and negative like news outlets talking about it and like that have played it already, but then Matt tweeting also propaganda about all the content creators that went in and played it already.
Well, no one gets flown out to LA and then they tweet, yeah, this kind of sucked, right? Like, so
Karq dropped a pretty unbiased review.
I think that was the best thread out of all of them. I think it was an interesting read. I don't know if we can get that one up, but I think it gave a pretty good idea of like the things that people are expecting.
Yeah, the Karq one I think was by far the best angle, because like, so this is like one of the aspects of how they're doing PvE, right? It's like they're doing these like evasion events that are going to be happening that are still technically, they like advance the story. And I think this one they have like 3 different ones. It's like Rio de Janeiro, Gothenburg, and Toronto, I believe, are the 3 missions that they're adding. And they're, you know, kind of like this style of like cinematic like gameplay that we sort of seen in Overwatch 1 a bit, but now there's actually like cutscenes and like real like dialogue custom made for it. And supposedly like the boss fights and like Omnics, you can like, you know, it's like shooting them and like their limbs and stuff fall up, and there's like story and things like that, and like it's like custom made maps and like scenarios. So it's still like individual missions, but it's not like that full like hero mission per se. It's the hero missions that like people were initially expecting. It's just more so like independent story missions that are going to be played.
Yeah, it does seem like a more fleshed out like Overwatch 2, Overwatch 1, not Junkenstein, but man, what was the one in King's Row? Uprising.
Oh, the
Yeah, it's like
Omnic
Crisis.
Crisis or whatever it was called.
Yeah, something like that. It feels like a way more fleshed out versions of those, especially with cutscenes and the ability to do custom voice lines and stuff like that. I think that's quite cool. There's a lot more thought that's like gone into it. But I think the replayability factor is always the big thing with these kind of things. But I think overall, it's not a bad thing for the game. Let's be real. I mean, Higgs, car queues.
And I can like TLDR this, like essentially what he says is the pros of this is like the big thing is the voice lines, the dialogue, as you said, Jack, and then the big cutscene at the beginning and the end. Those are really like the big new unique things that are going to come in these missions, and obviously it being in a new setting and not just us running through King's Row.
And there's lore, there's story,
and there's lore,
technically.
there's lots of lore, but
for the lore heads out there,
for the people who are like, you know, previously excited for the PvE aspect of the gameplay, it doesn't sound like this is revolutionizing it at all. He said the enemy AI felt very linear, so it's like it's not going to be this like interactive experience versus, you know, PvE bots and stuff like that. It was easy to clear. I guess he's a very good player, so like maybe that's to be expected. And he just said like you're just sort of like sitting and shooting. So I don't think the gameplay loop is going to be anything groundbreaking if you're looking for that. But for the lore heads, it sounds like it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to seeing the cinematics and playing it, but I think it's good that they sort of stemmed everyone's expectations like a month or two ago. Otherwise, I would have been really disappointed hearing this.
Yeah.
I think any draw for multiplayer games or like games nowadays, like the replayability factor in almost every single game is the multiplayer. So like, I think expecting, he does a Flashpoint.
yeah, there's also, but I don't think
seconds.
that's Flashpoint's coming out as well in season 6, correct?
Yes.
Oh, we're playing in the Overwatch League.
Yeah, it's coming out. We're playing in like
Yeah.
August, or was it August or something
It's
like that?
mid, I think I don't know if it's different for other teams, but for Florida at least, our last 2 matches will have this mode incorporated in it for like right before playoffs.
Which is good that they're integrating it into the Overwatch League fast, I'd say. Even if it's it's going to be like an unsolved game mode, but it's not like a meta where you're like a patch where you're changing a bunch of heroes, like the JQ patch, for example. You're not just kind of slinging that onto the Overwatch League. I think it's good that we're putting.
I mean, they are kind of slinging it on the.
They are, but it's
every new game mode is going to be slinged in some way unless they time it perfectly.
It's not as egregious as like a random massive patch that comes in.
They gave us a heads up at least, so it's like we have some time to process it. But like, I still don't know what the map looks like what the game loop's going to be, or how it's going to flow. But yeah, it'll replace, instead of having 2 controls essentially in a map 5, it'll just it basically removes that like the redundant map.
From what it sounds like is it plays very similar to Control. It's just a more fluid version instead of going from round to round, from what people have been saying. I think a lot of people have valid concerns when we're just looking at it of like, it seems like the spawns are going to be an interesting factor for this. They released a picture in a dev blog recently from Aaron where he's sort of essentially talking about like, that we ended up deciding that the first point is always going to be the point in the middle, just to add balance, kind of like a control map, and then it'll, you know, sort of move from there, which is interesting. And we'll see how that plays. The one thing from Karku's Twitter list that he said the point goes up way faster than you realize from just like watching this clip. So we'll see. I don't want to make too many snap judgments. You know, some people have already decided they've determined the meta of this game mode before we've even seen it. But like, we need to get our hands on it before we can really decide like if it's going to be good or bad, or just play exactly like Control.
I don't know. My worry is
it seems like a better Control. Personally.
It seems like Hardpoint from COD, and I hated Hard. That was like my least favorite.
No.
But we'll see. We'll see how it plays in Overwatch, because I don't think it'll be as enclosed. Because I think that's what I hate about COD. It's like it's just always like a tiny room, and you just throw grenades in there. It's like, I don't know. It felt. I hated that game mode. I know a lot of people, and also I think the spawns are random. Like in terms of after the first one, I don't think. Whereas in COD, it's like. All the pros know, so they can like cut spawns off. They like know there's like a set rotation on which hill is going to be next. Whereas you can't do that in this game mode because it's apparently random. I don't know if they're going to change that later down the line, but from what I understand, it's going to be random after the first one.
Well, the image here kind of shows how the spawns should look, and with so A will be unlocked first, right? And it'll be like the default red and blue spawn. Obviously, for audio listeners, it's going to be a bit difficult, but it's on the blog post about Flashpoint. It's worth looking into if you haven't done already. And then for point C, for example, mark it on this little diagram. Red spawn will be their default spawn, but blue spawn is going to be their forward spawn. So there's a forward spawn for each team, and then, for example, if it flips to B after that, blue will go back to their default spawn, and then red will go to their forward spawn. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be random, but the way the points flip, yes.
No, sorry, not the respawn, the points, the point rotation.
Oh, the points.
Yeah. I'm not talking about the.
Yeah.
Obviously, the spawn should be set. So they're. I mean, I assume they're not going to be asymmetric. They have to be symmetric.
But random, yes.
I mean, but random in terms of like it could go from A to C. It could go from A to B. It just you don't actually know. It doesn't go like A, B, C, D, E. In that,
which I think is good. I think a little bit of randomness there is nice. Otherwise, it's going to feel very linear. Like a lot of other game modes are extremely linear. Like that's just how the game mode plays. But a little bit of randomness in there, I don't think is a bad thing. And plus the new spawn flipping as well. I don't think you would have been able to do it if you couldn't like TP to different spawns as well. It would be way harder.
I think the one thing I really hope this game mode has fleshed out and moves away from, any time in which the best thing that your team can do is not fight for the current objective is bad for the game. So the one thing I am worried about is if they tell you where the next one is going to be too early, people are going to, they're at 70% to that point. The chances of us attacking and actually getting us, if we lose that fight, then it could snowball away from us. Let's just give up 30% of this point, give up this one, and then like prepare for the next one. That would be a really boring viewing experience as much as it would make sense for them to do that. So I'm wondering how they're going to combat that, because that's going to be awful to cast if that's true.
I think you only get credit if you capture, like, it's not like Hardpoint where you get credit like for any amount of time. I think it's like you have to finish capping that point to get credit.
Yeah, but that's my fear is like if you're like, well, we're never going to, like they have 70%, we have 0. The chances of us winning this is low.
Let's just try to find the other.
Yeah, let's just set up for the next one and not fight. And that'll give us like a 30 to 45 second downtime where no one's really fighting. Everyone's just waiting to see the next point or wait for it to unlock. Yeah. And I think that would be a really bad thing for the game.
I don't think that's bad for the game at all, because you do get a lot of times where you are just setting up a second for like, well, look at King's Row, for example. If you definitively lose that first fight, you're like, okay, we'll set up on Streets, we'll set up on Arch, and there will be a little bit of downtime. Maybe this is a little bit more than like resetting after a point take on Hybrid, but I don't think it's that bad, honestly. A little bit of downtime like that, especially when it comes to like commentary and like viewing the game from an esports perspective, I don't think that's bad, because constant action is just very like viewer fatigue heavy. So having those small bits of downtime within the a relatively fast-paced game mode by the looks of it, and what Karq said as well, like games are probably going to last like 10 minutes max. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, honestly.
I just think you're losing team fights, though. That's the problem. Is like, yes, from a standpoint of having downtime, but like then there's a realistic world where it's first to 3, I believe. So it's like you could just lose 4 team fights, right? Like, and that could be like, we could only really have 4 major team fights of like, there's a lot of poking, but like only 4 team fights that matter. Like, you could be right, and like as you said, we have to wait and see. But I'm just a little worried that it'll feel like kind of like that's the issue that Push had. Remember, where it's like people are like, oh, you know, like you just don't push the bot, and we're just going to stand around, and that's just really bad to like watch.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's still like, there's still with Push, at least, even if you're not like pushing the bot, there's still a lot of team fights occurring, right? Where the other team is like taking the fight to the bot very fast, because like everyone knows where the bot is at, you know, like there is no like rotating objectives. So I feel like there's still a lot of team fights in Push either way, even if like one team is not necessarily pushing the bot, like in that one instance, which I do agree is like not ideal. I'm more worried as well about like Karq said that supposedly it's like they felt like if you win one fight, you're at 80% cap on the point because of the fast capture time.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the thing that's worrying more so than downtime, is like if you're going to essentially get a cap off of one fight and then you pretty much just get the point off of that, then it kind of defeats the purpose of the game mode to me, because you're not fighting over an objective multiple times. It's just like one fight.
But that's what I'm saying. That was
yeah. No, I think the problem is the snowball, right? If you do win the first team fight and you just get, you're gonna have more ults, and then you don't have to use those ults, and then you just take the ults into the next point, and then that's 2 points out of like, you know, like it's just a really quick snowball, and I think that's a potential problem. But I don't know. Well, I have no idea. I never entered that map. I have no clue.
Yeah.
it's going to actually play out.
Well, we'll see.
If that does become a problem, like there's an easy solution to that, and just like slow down the capture progress.
Yeah.
And then like you're able to get another touch with that. Because if you are like 80, you're like, oh god, okay, maybe this is last touch for this point, right? You have to send your Tracer Lucio to get that touch to go into like a little OT kind of dealio. But I think those problems will be easily fixed, and especially I just want to talk about more of a like an overlevel point here as well with Karku and a bunch of the content creators, especially Karku. I'd say I think his takes on the game are pretty damn like probably the most balanced of like any content creator I kind of follow and look at the opinions and stuff. So like having him and like other content creators there, both like high skill like and more on the lower end is a good thing, because they're able to give feedback, and this game mode and even the PvE shit isn't even out yet. So like you're in a situation where, hey, we didn't like this, it was too snowbally, and they can just change it just before the game mode comes out, or just before like the PvE comes out. So it's good that they're also having these things too.
I think what he said at the end was most important, like that he thinks it's better than push or 2CP, or and 2CP, because I honestly didn't mind. I know a lot of people hated 2CP. I think they could have fixed that game mode, and I thought push was like a step, like it was a new game. It wasn't 2CP, but like I don't know. I don't think that mode is very great. But as long as it's better than push, like I think that's a good sign. You know, it would suck to have 2CP or put like basically 2 game modes that people don't want to play. In the rotation. So if it's better than push, like I'm all for it.
Also, if they just fix the spawns, like depending on how the spawn waves work and such like that, they could very easily mitigate as well the issue of like not feeling worth to take a fight. Because like let's say like you go and take a fight, and then you just like as soon as the point flips, you have like a reduced spawn timer or something for like a second or something like that, or like something like that to put everyone in the same wave. Then like I don't know. I think there's like a couple different options for people that work in game dev that have more time thinking about this that I can't really think off the top of my head that probably can be used to fix that issue. So I think it's but I am excited if it's potentially better than push or TCP though, because I think a mode like this is like a perfect Overwatch game mode though, because of how fast the game typically is. So having like something where you're taking a lot of fights throughout the map a lot, and also the geometry changes everywhere, because I think that's something that where Overwatch sometimes it sometimes gets a little like boring or annoying, where like if where a particular like if there's a particular part of geometry of the map that's really annoying when a team fights keep occurring on it, and then you force the geometry to change, so you have like a new area to fight over, and you're just like forcing that new fight. I feel like that's kind of interesting to like mitigate when like maybe a team is like super ass at fighting one particular point, you know, or maybe one team's way too good at holding a point, and it's like, okay, well, new geometry just dropped, and like now you have to go to like a new area and go fight it there. So I feel like Archimedes fuming over that statement, but like overall, like I feel like that would be like a good thing potentially for the game. It's like having new areas to fight over.
I agree with you. I think this could easily be one of the best game modes that Overwatch has in it, because I think it, as Avast said, like it plays into the things that you want to do in Overwatch, where you want to play fast, you want to do multiple things, you want it to be fluid. So I think it definitely could. I don't think it will be that on release, but if they just keep iterating on it and listening to feedback and like willing to like, you know, budge on some things, I think it could be awesome for the game. So and as Alva said, the fact that we don't, now that we play 5 maps and we have 5 game modes, that goes an incredibly long way of making series feel much more compelling.
I'm really hoping, at least in the Overwatch League format, they just remove Control as the first map. I think having this as the first map will be way better. And then Control decided...
this is the middle map 5. For now. But
a middle map
that could be interesting.
With Control first.
Well, where do you put push then? Because I feel like the one thing that is like, where do you put push? Because I don't like push in the 4, but I definitely don't want push to be 5, right? So it's like I don't really know where you want to put push. Maybe you just leave it at 4.
Because Control has to be 5th.
I think 4 is fine, because if you're like, if it's 3-0, like you don't see push. It's like, okay,
yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well, if you want to come back, like you have to, you know.
You have to go through push.
Yeah,
I think you're right, actually. Maybe just keeping it at 4.
At 4, Control at 5, this at number 1, and then Hybrid and Escort wherever.
I think at number 1 could be interesting. I think it just depends on the game mode and how it plays out. If it plays out like a Control, then yeah, having Control as like the last map could be interesting. But I think Control first has just always been a thing in Overwatch, and I think pros are used to it. You kind of everyone warms up scrims. Like it's kind of like a hand warmer of a map. It's like, okay, like it's just straight team fights, very straightforward. let's just duke it out real quick, make sure everyone's like mechanics are fine, and then move on to the other maps where you can actually lose fights and still win the map. You know, there's a little bit more strategy than, I mean, in Koth is just you lose fights, it's over. Like you can't win a Koth winning less team fights than the other team, generally speaking.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't
The
know.
maps are apparently
I don't know where you
huge
put it.
though.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
I mean,
the
they have
maps
to
are also
be, right?
apparently
They have to be.
Yeah,
maps.
they have
Yeah,
to.
they have
which
to
I
be
think is
absolutely.
fun. I think I'm very cool to see. I also like how like I know New Junk City is an actual like place, but I feel like we're just adding junk in front of things as an adjective in Overwatch. You know, it's like Junk City, Junk Town, like
At least they're not being
junk
like
in front of shit.
At least they're not being like, oh, Junk City, Australia, your hometown, right? It's like, hey, fuck you. You know, we have things
No,
here.
that's facts, though. What do you mean? Most of your country is desert, bro.
Do you think they
No,
can run
fuck
this
you.
game mode on a toaster though? If it's so big, like that's my only worry. But I'm sure
Yeah.
I
Overwatch
think
is
Yeah.
insanely optimized.
yeah, Overwatch
though.
is really optimized. You're
Very
right.
optimized,
Yeah.
but
Like it's probably the most insanely optimized AAA game.
You say that, and then
right now.
someone's gonna find
So,
the
I was
mercy
gonna
bug
say-
and spawn, and then you drop to 1 FPS on
Yeah,
on
God.
New
yeah,
Junk
but then
City,
they'll
and then
fix it. They'll fix it. You know.
also, Albert, now you've said that, someone is going to be like, oh, my Celeron process is overheating, bro. Like, how can I not play the game? Like, I can't play because of this map type. What the fuck? Like,
I mean, they
someone's
recently
gonna
had to
fucking say that
disable
shit now.
Pariso because of the mercy, and I don't even know how they find that bug. You have to stand in a particular location and like swap 3 or 4 times to activate the bug. It's like I don't even know how
Who's
you would
looking for
find.
this?
How did you find that? Like, why were you looking for? Like, I don't know. Anyways.
What is quite funny, actually, Junkertown has also been a map that's just been riddled with bugs. You had the beam damage on the little battery things, which would lag the server and lag
You
every
had the motorcycle
FPS.
thing.
Yeah,
If
the
you-
motorcycle one.
with May, which
just
would just
crash the server.
Honestly, that was the best bug ever because Junkertown is not a good map. So it was like, okay, May and Spawn just DC the whole server and then we get to go again. Like, hopefully we don't get Junkertown back to back, but. I hope there's no big bugs like that in the new map. The new map does look cool though, and I did really like. It's not really like a competitive or like gameplay perspective kind of thing, but when the artists do come on and talk about how like they made the map and how they design different things, and I really enjoyed that just as like a game dev head. I like to know how they design like each individual point to be like, you know, this one's high ground dominant, this one's good for like spamming corridors and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed the talk about how they design those points and design the aesthetics of the map too. Because one thing Overwatch does very well, and it's done well for a long time, I think, is just aesthetics and polish. It looks super cool. Like this map as well looks wicked.
They do generally pretty good with that.
I don't know, why not?
Aesthetics.
Aesthetic. There's a lot of
Aesthetics.
aesthetic in Overwatch as well. I'm just saying.
Love that.
All right, let's move on to the World Cup. Obviously we've had a little bit of a break, like I mentioned before. So there's been a lot happening, hit a pop happening over at the Overwatch World Cup. A lot of 2 Overwatch as well through all the groups. We're not going to touch on every single group or anything like that, and like obviously every single game, which would take literal years off of our lives at this point. And we work in esports, and that happens every single day. So I think just talking about the teams that did end up making it through would be the best thing to do. And there are a few upsets here and there, and a few like, okay, this was kind of bound to happen. I'll start it off with the Asia Pacific Group A. So South Korea, surprise, surprise. Japan and Hong Kong did end up making it through. That's right, IRP.
He's
lived a full life.
Oh,
He is
legend.
through.
The Moira
IRP
God
is in.
himself.
The
huh?
Moira God.
He's in.
Wait,
did he
and
play in any?
Korea-
Did he play in any of the matches?
I don't know.
I don't actually know because
I
I did
didn't
not
watch any Hong Kong games,
I didn't
yeah.
watch the
Okay.
Asia. I watched World Cup, but I didn't watch. I specifically only watched Europe and Americas. I didn't watch any of the Asia because I knew exactly what was going to happen.
What was going to
and
happen? For
what
people
happened
who didn't watch, by the way, South Korea got a 0.07 push on an escort map on Circuit Royale victory.
They
the
finished the
Philippines
match
were like,
in.
I'm
I
a
think they finished the
spawn
match in
camp, real
14
quick.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They finished their match versus the Philippines in 14 minutes.
They literally
Korea
touched the
spawn
cart
camped them
on attack and
on their
won. Yeah.
defense. And then Philippines got it 0.7 meters. And then South Korea, all they did was just run Orisa, spear, spin, touch the payload, they insta-win. Oh, here you
it
go.
is.
The BP,
Oh,
the
12.
BP
It was
speed
12
run.
minutes.
12
I mean, and
minutes.
part of that is because it's at first to 2, so
Yeah.
they just
Yes.
2-0'd. But like also
So here it
like
is.
my God, they just
Map's
Also-
over, everybody. Map's over.
Yeah. This is what happens when you choose defense as the better team. You just
Yeah.
hold it. That's how you get the fastest times for sure.
Yeah, and they even trolled too, and they still just like, I mean, it wasn't even close. It essentially wasn't close to exactly what everyone expected. South Korea dominated fucking everybody. Japan was pretty good too, because they essentially have a contenders team. But the reality is though, so it's cool that Japan made it, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think everyone's understands that South Korea is just so far and above everyone in the region that it's like they could have made 5 different teams and the result would have been the same.
Yeah.
So it was barely, and this is qualifiers to be fair. So, you know, I don't think there's anything that's like should be that crazy about it.
No, that's why I don't think we should touch on it too much. There was just some.
I mean, also
stomps,
none
like
of
all
the
regions.
Yeah,
bro.
none of the other teams had an ALA player like
Yeah.
on their roster in that group.
If only Japan had brought out Tayo, but he did not make his way. Did not make his way back.
It does mean Team Japan have Nico as their DPS, so we could have Nico versus
the
Nico,
French Nico?
French versus Japan.
Yeah.
No,
not the French Nico.
Not the French
There's
Nico, no.
another player in Japan called Nico, so we could have a
Nico
who
off.
wins?
Nico-
Nico
Nico-
Gosland or
Nico on Nico
Nico
action.
from Team Japan. Which would be quite funny. Asia Pacific Group B, obviously only 2 teams from each of the Group B got through. Team Australia.
Let's
There's the
go.
dub. Again, honestly,
Easy 6-0,
it's-
7-0? 6-0?
yeah, I mean, it's still another kind of easier group. And Team Thailand did end up making it through as well. And Team Thailand have always kind of been like sleeper a lot of the World Cups. They do take some cheeky wins.
I'm surprised New Zealand didn't do better.
New Zealand, they really only had their biggest. I mean, they had like color hex.
Color hex,
and
that's
then,
it, yeah.
Like everyone else has been there for like a long
JCap is
time.
like a good player as well, but like
Yeah, they've been there for
I think
but,
a bunch
like
of
I don't know.
contenders players. Yeah, I mean,
Thailand, the roster was like not bad. Like I said, I'm not like 100% well versed in the Asia matches because I pretty much didn't bother watching any of them because exactly what I thought would happen happened. So, you know, like I can't give the best overview.
and then
of this.
India had like the Indian American roster essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
They
India
literally,
had
like-
like Pummy, right? I believe
Yeah.
they had like
Yeah,
Pummy. and
Pummy.
They had a
such.
Cash, they had Pummy.
Yeah. They had one,
think.
I think maybe one Indian player that was like just full. That was not like American, like an American Indian or like a Canadian.
Hey, listen,
Indian
if
or
this on
something
the
like that.
rules, go ahead. Like Mirror,
Oh,
Mirror
yeah.
would, if we would have picked up Mirror would have been eligible to play for USA, even though he's not an actual citizen. But he has a green card, so that counts.
Oh.
Wait, if you have a green card, you can play for like a country?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
that's
actually pretty
according to-
loose.
Oh my
According to the
god, when
rules,
I get
yeah.
my green card, I'm just gonna become USA.
Oh,
USA.
I'm coming back,
You
boys.
have to make your way through the trials.
Here we
I think.
go. I
Well, I
love
think in the
America.
future, well, I talked to Fernando, who's the guy running everything, and I was like, because you know how in like FIFA or like in other sports, like a lot of the staff are from other countries. Like they're not like
Yeah.
the players are all like from that country, but then they'll have like, you know, a French coach or like a whatever, you know, coaching the USA national team, for example. It's like, I think that would be interesting because I think there's a lot more staff and like not necessarily, you know, you can't, it's kind of hard to like develop staff, and a lot of staff is located in certain regions. And I think it'd be cool to see like a USA coach help out, you know, someone else in Australia or like some of the smaller teams out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, eventually.
Eventually one day.
Let's talk about Europe then. Obviously, I think most people, like you were saying, Connor, as well, like watch the Europe and Americas. But
This was the best
EU
group,
and
for
Middle
sure.
East, Group A, UK, Spain, and France made it
this
through.
is the
That's
banger.
Group A.
Yes,
This
let's
is
go
good. I mean,
Spain.
both the-
I don't
both
think
the
anyone
groups were
expected
good,
Spain to go. Yeah,
yeah,
no one
Spain
expected
was-
Spain to go this far. Or
Spain,
like
Denmark shat the bed like never before
Yes.
seen.
Yeah.
Denmark had
a full owl roster.
They had a full
yeah.
Overwatch League roster with a former like
XL, and like they've had
Well, yeah,
our
yeah.
players and
Yeah,
they have
but, like,
contenders players. Yeah.
They have technically isn't Shockwave still in New York? So technically they still have.
Yeah,
Shockwave,
They have
yeah.
an our player. Yeah, like they
Yeah,
have, they have
But
good
have-
players.
but all of them have been in Overwatch League
Yeah.
at some
Except
point. Some have been
except for
really
Slay.
good,
Yeah.
except for Slay. Yeah, all of
Everyone
them have
else
been.
has been.
But even Slay like was on Twisted Minds.
He's on high. He's been
right?
on high level contenders teams for
which has
long
been a
time.
team that's been like
Yeah.
dominating EU
Oblivione, I
contenders.
think.
Still.
Yeah.
So like they've that team had essentially 6 ex Overwatch League players plus 1 current Overwatch League player, and all the players that at one point were like very good. You know, they had like very high highs, and they lost to a contenders Europe roster, and also to like.
I mean,
They lost their last
beat
game. They
UK,
lost to
and then
they lost to Netherlands as well.
Yeah.
Netherlands was like very
got
not like the
2-0'd
roster
by
was
the
not very
Netherlands.
strong, and there was still a chance that if France had beaten like the UK in the last day, And as long as Denmark had beaten Netherlands, they still could have made it, but Denmark just lost to Netherlands. So like they lost their only chance.
Yeah, they like also like they had an opening because Spain lost to Italy, right? Like it was some like I don't even know how this happened. I didn't watch this game.
Suck that got essentially Italy played like Reaper, and Spain didn't know how to play against the Reaper Rush comp.
Right. Okay. And that is something that has been really cool about this World Cup is like literally because like in the Overwatch League, everyone just plays the same shit, right? Because everyone's screaming each other. This like World Cup is like countries are just playing what they can play, like and what they're good at, and it's kind of interesting to see those like clash of styles like really have that kind of impact. Like Italy beating Spain, a team that actually ended up qualifying. So it's been awesome, and massive props to Spain. I think everyone expected France and United Kingdom to make it out. Like France is just playing their tried and trusty brawl as they have like ever since the beginning of World Cup. So
I think on paper Denmark was supposed to be top 3, but then
100%. I was mauling when they went to wild cards. When they were forced to wild cards in this new format, like I was mauling because like this roster is so fucking good.
Yeah.
And their roster, like they just shit the bed so hard. Like it was disgusting how
they beat the top team in their group and then
beat any of the other no one else.
Just beefed it. Yeah, for sure.
Because who are the two teams that got added to the wildcard? Is Finland and Denmark? Yeah.
Finland, Denmark were the teams that made it out of their respective groups, and then also Portugal and Iceland made it out of their groups.
Okay.
Wow. Because it was like Finland, Iceland, Switzerland, Denmark, Portugal, Ireland.
Right.
So.
Dude, seeing Half-Equal play DPS was like a throwback. I was like, that is like from so long ago that I've seen Half-Equal play DPS. Like that.
Dude, the last time he did it was when we were on Fnatic at like late 2016, and that was when we were going through the thing. It's like, hey man, we know you love to play DPS, but you got to play D.Va. Like this is just the way the game is played, and he was fucking pissed. So he's throwing it back now. He's made his return.
Yeah. No, I remember that. Yeah. Everyone hated playing D.Va, and then you had all these DPS like, no, I don't want to play D.Va. It's like, okay, well, do you want to play on this team, or like you want to?
But Spain was impressive, I will say. They had like potentially a contenders roster, and they just went really hard on like Helv, who's the player I knew the most going into this tournament, like just pretty much diving and just like having their DPS try to like pop with Helv making the space. So like they looked pretty good, honestly. I do think that like. I'm glad that Europe still like it's qualifiers, so I don't think anyone should expect like really high quality matches in the World Cup qualifiers, especially with how the ecosystem is like played out to this point, and we haven't had like consistent World Cup games. So like you should expect the majority of World Cup to be kind of bad because there's like really not that many good really good regions. But Europe, Group A and Group B were both pretty interesting.
I will say to the casual viewer, they can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like people are literally like, oh, like all these players are so insane. It's like, I mean, there's levels to insanity, and like they just didn't understand. Like a lot of the random comments are like, oh, like these players, like this is why they should bring back contenders like every region. It's like, I mean, they, like it is the best of that country, but like that doesn't, there's still levels to like how good each team is, and like the
I do want to pick up on that, but that's actually a really good point, because there was someone that said that in my Twitch chat the other day, and they said this is why they should bring back South America contenders, because they had that back in 2018, 2019, and because it cost to quote them, it cost Blizzard no money. And I think that
that's not true.
Exactly.
That's
and
just
like I did explain, like it does cost money to run these things.
Listen, just because they pay them in Blizz bucks doesn't mean they don't have to pay real money.
Exactly.
on the staff costs. Yeah.
There's a big reason why, like them taking the regions away, and you could say they're focusing on EU, Korea, and North American contenders more. Like, you could debate that to the high heavens, but the reality is, like, those regions, it does cost them money to run these tournaments. They need admins and everything else. So, like, at the end of the day, they're unlikely to go back. Unfortunately, they're unlikely to go back into regions once they've pulled out of them. And I think this is a bit of a mistake, like a long time ago by Blizzard. And it's something that Valorant did pretty well in the way that they supported like the LATAM region and South America. And now they're like mad into Valorant, although they were always like huge into CS as well, to be fair. So that kind of, it definitely helped it in that regard. But as soon as you withdraw support for like a contender structured format in a region, putting it back is not going to generate the same level of success as you once saw. Like, it's going to be a slow build up again to where maybe it's kind of sustainable. But these things do cost money, and unfortunately, I just don't see a world where they put more money into the South American region unless something crazy happens later down the line. I just don't really see it happening, which does kind of suck, because a lot of these players who now obviously end up playing in NA for North American teams, they just won't see the same level of support, which does kind of suck. But things like the World Cup really do help elevate those regions where like nothing else is doing. So.
Well, I think the Valorant's, like, to your point on Valorant, I think the thing about Valorant is there's really good teams from each region, right? And I think that's what it validates, like, okay, we should be able to support as long as there's talent there and like top tier talent. I think the problem is if you go back to like if you have that contender system, I can't think of any Brazilian teams that's going to really do well. Like historically in Overwatch, like there hasn't been like a top tier. Whereas for Valorant, there's plenty of like top tier Valorant teams that can compete at international stage. I just don't think for Overwatch.
To be fair, we didn't
case.
like give it like we didn't give it really a fair shakeout comparatively, because like for example, like Japan starting with Valorant was really bad, and then they produced like they produced like Zeta Division, which had like multiple pretty good finishes and have done pretty well after they went to a couple international events and got their asses kicked for a bit, right? Because like no region typically, it's tough to just build. To like bring the talent out, and like sure you're gonna get your asses kicked initially, but like if they're actually gonna learn and grow, they could still be pretty good. It's just we didn't really give it that much time, because we had like the 2018 like Atlantic Pacific Showdown gauntlet, you know, and then we kind of killed it right after that, and then we didn't have any more of that.
For sure, there's been a lot of mistakes along the way, but I can't go back in time. If I could go back and change, like, you know, I'd rather have Overwatch League. Like if they're gonna do an Overwatch League, you should have done it in the beginning, right? But instead we had like open circuit for like 2 years, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, now we're gonna take a year basically moratorium while we like put together Overwatch League, and then you know, that kind of scared a lot of talent away, or like it stymied like the development. And then I don't know, we can talk about like the development of the league all day.
We can.
I do want to say as well, like it just kind of sucks for all these regions, because it felt like Overwatch contenders sort of put it implementation into a lot of these countries, and they stymied their own, like they could have organically built their own thing, but then they sort of cut them off at the knees, put their own thing there, and then they withdrew funding when they weren't competitive and when they started, you know, cutting budgets. So I think that really hurts all these regions. Maybe they would have been competitive, and, you know, maybe that's what Valorant did better. So it sucks, because I don't think they're ever going to catch up again, right? Like,
I mean, who knows? You can always restart. I don't think there's ever. You can always restart and it'll be fine if there's interest. Like, I just think it just depends on like if there's ever like if we're in a new era, you know, who knows? With like theoretically, if World Cup becomes a larger part of the ecosystem, I don't think it's ever too late to say like a region can't catch up. It's just obviously there's a lot of hurdles to that per se.
I mean, I think if they made tier 2 like a more open circuit instead of, you know, it's like, okay, well, if there's enough interest in Brazil, like some tournament organizer will step up, right, and make a if it makes sense, they'll make an Overwatch contenders. But I think for now in the current structure, it's like Blizzard wants oversight over, like if it's called contenders or it's part of the contender circuit, it needs to be owned by like somebody at Blizzard.
Right. Yeah, and that's the problem. Well, like you said, Connor, it's a good point. Like maybe with all this love coming into the World Cup again, like maybe we do see something like that crop up. I'm not sure.
Which really we deviated from the original point, which is Denmark shit the bed, and UK is probably probably UK. UK is legitimately probably like it's definitely one of the teams I'm looking forward towards. Like they could potentially be one of the they could, if they had a good run, they could place into like that top 3-4. You know, finish.
Does Backbone being on Flex Support say anything for Spitfire? Like, what's going on there? Not that he hasn't played Flex Support for Spitfire in the past, but like
I mean, they still
I just don't think they have a good Flex Support.
Yeah, I just don't think UK has, without Boombox, I don't think UK had like a Flex Support to.
Not really. They just had that was Boombox and that was it.
Well, they were considering Jaws as well, so that's where you know how low they're going for things.
I mean, there was also what was that one guy? There was the dude. There was Slur. But that obviously probably didn't pan out.
Yeah, maybe not that
guy. So yeah, I mean, like, so I mean, UK, so that's the problem. But UK was legitimately. I mean, like, this is a team which actually, like, oh, this does have a lot of ex Overwatch League players or Overwatch League level players, because it was like, oh, it looked like pretty coordinated comparatively.
It's a good meta for them too. They just keep running monkey. Jake Haru's a very good Winston player.
If they can just force the Winston, they're going to be fine. But Spain, I will say, Spain of all the teams that are going to the World Cup, Spain might be the one that like. For one, I didn't expect to be good. It was like, oh, they could actually have like a pretty decent placement comparatively. Like looking after all the other teams that are making it that I think are weaker, Spain's probably the best of them potentially.
Yep.
So it'll be good.
Um,
and then, so I think that was fun.
Saudi Arabia and Finland also made it out of Group B. Saudi Arabia playing the classic projectile comp with Yazan.
Bro,
Yazan Echo, Yazan Farah. And you're like, look, it's like solo queue in a way. A lot of these games are like solo queue. Yeah, guess what,
Europe's
buddy?
been
You're gonna get
terrorized
Robert
by
Farah.
the Far Mercy for like years now. Like they have
It's
PTSD
awful.
just getting bodied by any Pharaoh from Saudi Arabia. There's been 2 now, right? Like it's not just
Yeah,
not
I
even
think
just
it's 2.
And
Makes
it is
sense.
hard to punish if the players are really good
Yeah.
because you need a really high level of coordination and like really good DPS players with like a really just all around to like deal with it because of how annoying it is. So like, you know, it really they're not gonna get away with that shit though. Once they get to the main stage, they're not getting away. It's like Twisted Minds making it to the fucking, you know, when they try to do the open qualifiers.
Toronto
for
Defiant
Overwatch.
like pulled them apart, and we know how good Toronto Defiant were like in that tournament now, right? Like I think any top tier team usually deals with it pretty well. And I think, funnily enough, I actually think a lot of people have a lot of respect for the Saudi Arabian team, top teams now. I don't think they're going to walk into this match being like, we can just like clown on these guys and we're going to win. Because if you don't take them seriously, it was the Houston Outlaws, right, against Twisted Minds, where they were fucking around and they dropped them
they
out.
tried to mirror. I mean, they tried to mirror them.
Yeah.
And
don't mirror.
like literally all they do is play Fair Mercy. Like, of course they're gonna play better than you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my takeaway from my surprise in this group was Sweden's performance. I thought Sweden would.
Yeah.
I thought Sweden would
Hepster on
perform
ping apparently
way
did not
better.
help. Like that was crazy. That they
Yeah,
weren't pulling numbers.
played from like he went back. So we were in Korea. He took a flight to Finland and played the entire qualifiers from Finland. So he was.
That's
on
awesome.
ping.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's sick actually. Yeah, like at least 2. Well, surely Sparker's on ping too.
Yeah,
right?
I assume Kester and
Sparker
Sparker
and
was
Kev.
both on ping. Yeah.
Would they be on West Coast as well? So that's probably
That's
like real
180.
fucking bad. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like
like,
180
yeah.
ping was what they was
For
saying.
real.
Yeah. But that still
It
doesn't
sucks.
excuse, in my opinion, like the level of overall play they had, I think. But yes, if your 2 best parts of that team were the 2 DPS players that were on high ping. So it's like, it's
Rough,
tough.
man.
That's very tough to like perform. So I don't even blame. So and people are acting like the Sweden loss is a bigger betrayal than the Denmark loss. I'm like, guys, they're not even equivalent. Denmark has like a full Overwatch League roster essentially.
Yeah.
Sweden had like 2 Overwatch League DPS players, and like I think they also had like Lolshus, who technically was in the Overwatch League but didn't play.
He didn't.
So
Yeah, that sucked. He was in Visa Hell forever, I think, wasn't he?
yeah, it was in Visa Hell with Justice. So it's like I just think
yeah.
that like the Denmark situation is far worse than the Sweden situation. But Finland was good. I liked Finland. It was enjoyable to watch them play. But I mean, Saudi Arabia definitely seemed like the best team out of that group.
Yeah.
So
They're great for sure.
Oh,
They
it
all
was
seem
nice-
pretty
Okay,
convinced.
I watch like most of their game? Did they play anything other than Farah or Echo, or they were like, where we live in the skies, this is our
Farah
lives
Echo.
now? Just Farah Echo 100% of the
They
time?
played a little bit of Soj.
Okay.
From what I remember, but like
Yeah, they had
it was
some
a
flexible-
minute.
They did a
amount
little bit of
Soj.
trolling, but I think when they're playing serious, they were
Just
they were
always
Farah,
staying
Echo
there.
Mercy, Fair Mercy.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, speak from this group, Onigod actually. Shout out
Oh,
Onigod.
yeah?
That guy, one of the OGs. That,
Only got
Yeah.
for Norway.
that came back. Looked pretty good. I mean, I don't know. They got third, so kind of sucks. But
Tough group.
he played well. Yeah.
Okay, well, next question. Do you think Norway would have beaten Spain if they had been in the other group?
Good question. Can you look at? Can you scroll up to Norway's roster again, real quick?
Because, like, I thought they
I
were
mean,
good, but
there's
I
only 2
don't-
players I know.
I
in that.
wouldn't
It's
have
like
expected it,
Yikwins
right?
and Onigod. I know Yikwins.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I
think
think that's hard to say. I don't. On paper, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be an interesting matchup. I think that would be an
I
interesting
think Spain
matchup.
probably sort of won because I think Spain was like a mostly contenders roster that has a decent level of coordination. Like they had a decent level of
I
coordination
do.
as well.
Yeah.
I don't like that the qualifications are asymmetric. Like it's 3 from one group and 2 from the other. Like that
Yeah.
seems like I almost feel like I want Norway and Spain to do, or whoever was third, right? So France, I guess. Like Norway, if you're
Oh, that would have been cool, yeah.
like a final qualify, like who gets the last, like the 5th spot, right? So it'd be France. I would have liked to see like France versus Norway, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. The format limitations are what they are. But in an ideal world, I'd like to see it where it isn't just completely lopsided and you have an equal chance to qualify.
Having a 3 and a 2 was a bit
Yeah.
weird. We'll talk about Americas now. Last region before we get into Overwatch League news because there's been a ton of Overwatch League news. Group A, who's really surprised here at the top 2, the US obviously, and Team Canada. And then Mexico actually made it through as well. So that was pretty awesome to see Mexico. Like a lot of those.
Mexico.
honestly,
Vamos.
like looking at the roster, there's a lot of like known quantities there on Team Mexico, so I was pretty happy to see them get through. But obviously, US and Canada have just giga stacked rosters, so like they were going to take that. No other.
Yeah,
team
I mean,
stood
also
a
US
chance.
kind of trolled their way through the qualifiers. So
I mean,
they
honestly,
were drinking
yeah.
and swapping
Dude,
roles.
when we lost that map to Mexico, I was in disbelief. I was like, the level of trolling that Hydron did on Winston was like unprecedented. And he like like we're in the timeout or in between maps. Like, okay, want to play what? And they're like, okay, let's we want our offers. Like, okay, who's offered? Like, who's playing tank? And I'm just like, me. I'll play Winston. Like full confidence. Like after we lose that, after the match, he goes, "Oh, by the way, I haven't played tank since Overwatch 1." I'm like, what are you talking about? You haven't played tank since Overwatch 1. And he's like, I haven't played tank since Overwatch 1. He's like, it felt much different in Overwatch 2. I was like, this guy really just played tank in Overwatch 2 for the first time, like in an international like match, and we just lose because I think he got slept every time. He got slept or flailed or a combination of both every single dive.
There was a montage of it on.
Oh yeah, BP was quick with it.
BP made a montage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
BP
he
was
always
straight
quick
up,
with it.
boom, 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 slept.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it was so fucking funny. But you know, I mean, hey, you trolled, but like it doesn't matter because the real games start now, buddy. So
Yeah.
you might be good. Oh, here we go. Here's the
This guy
infinitely slept.
slept,
Dude was taking so many naps.
flailed.
And the thing is, because
Flail,
Mexico
flail.
legitimately had their mechanics weren't bad. Like Mexico had like
there's
pretty
good
decent
players.
mechanics. They just were obviously clearly like
Yeah,
not
I
nearly
mean,
as coordinated at
listen,
the high enough level. But
RuPaul or Anna that map had more damage than Hydron and Winston. That's the level of performance we're talking
That's
about
rough.
here.
yeah, that was extreme next level trolling. So and also, I mean, so really, but everyone knew this was a done deal. Like at the end of the day, Americas and the APAC, Asia area were like this. It was kind of just done. It was like everyone knew the results going into it. Like the only real, like Europe was the real shockers because there was no upsets anywhere, like at all, like realistically.
I also just want to say, we could have had the original like Toronto Defiant roster. We would still have done the same thing in groups. Like I don't think people were all doom and gloom. Like, oh, USA is cooked. It's like, guys, this is the World Cup. It's less competitive than Overwatch League, and I think people don't understand that. Like people don't understand. You could be the worst team. You could be the worst team in Overwatch League and still dominate groups in like World Cup. Unless you're in the APAC region and you're playing
most of those
South
comments
Korea.
I do think are coming from a lot of viewers that are new to World Cup because co-streaming's allowed now with like ML7, J3, like even I was like sitting in some J3's calls when he was watching World Cup and we were kind of talking about it and stuff, and I was explaining to him like, oh yeah, by the way, Team Korea have the best players in the world, like on their team, like straight up. Like they will not lose World Cup. They will barely lose a map, like at all, because their team is just so good. They have one of the best coaches in the world as well. Like, and then all these other teams, I was kind of explaining like, oh, this player's from this team, this player's from this team, and for like Overwatch League. But a lot of the people, or like most of the people in Twitch chat, it's like, oh, like this is the highest level of competition, like in Overwatch, right? So like, I think that's where a lot of those kind of comments come from. And welcome group stays, buddy. I can't wait to see South Korea dominate everybody. Like it's going to be a good time. And like now people kind of grasp like, oh, who's actually good versus who? Because like you said, Toronto Defiant roster for Team USA would dominate the groups as well. Like
I mean, I get it if you don't watch Al. If you don't watch Al, this is higher level than most. Like top 100 games,
definitely,
right?
But
so
it's like
of course,
there's like a level that you don't see, which is fair enough because maybe you just don't like watching Overwatch League. But like, a level of understanding will eventually come in these group stages and the actual like knockouts, and it's going to be a good time seeing a lot of people realize like, oh shit, the team that I like is going to get dumpstered by US or like Korea or something.
You see all those comments from people in those situations of like, oh, like it's the same people like, oh, there's so many like world-class players who have like never been in the league, and it's like, why aren't they here? It's like if you're watching like, a top 500 team face a top 500 team, one player is going to be the best guy in the server. That doesn't make them the best player in the world. Like, because like, if you just look at the United States and Korea matches, it's a prime example of like, they haven't even been contested. And as you said, you guys have the Toronto Defiant guys that didn't perform well in the Overwatch League this season, yet the worst performance I believe that they can have other than catastrophic failure is top 4. And like, then it's just like, well, can they beat South Korea and China, right? Like, it's not even close. No one else, I believe, is really going to hold a candle. Maybe, a Canada or a Team UK is going to make a run. But for the most part, these teams just have way too many outplayers. And I don't think people really have that context right now.
They will. They will eventually.
They will.
They will know eventually. Also, my favorite player, Ludwig, made it through. So yeah, congrats to
Ludwig!
Ludwig! Let's do it, Team Brazil.
Let's go Brazil.
Yes,
and then hey,
where
EQO made it
is-
with Colombia. So
EQO,
EQO
EQO did
The
make
EQO
it too.
backpack, huh? Just correct. I actually like what Colombia did. They played to their strengths. They played all to Zarya, which was not.
I thought they played okay, honestly. All things considered, considering that I didn't know much about that team at all, I was like, okay, like it looks like they kind of had an idea, like what's going on here. You know, it looks like they had a plan.
I think they had an identity, which is like hard. Which is I think it's admirable because these are essentially pug teams, right? Like most of them, like they're not real teams. They either came together and like started grinding. Would get whatever scrims they can get. So it's kind of hard to come up with an identity and just to realize that and have a cohesive, like, hey, we're the Zarya, like Ikio's gonna flex and we're gonna play around like our Zarya player, right? And I think that's like something to be commended. I think for the qualifiers for World Cup.
Although Team Malaysia's Game Pro dude didn't make it, I was actually kind of disappointed. It's one of the best.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the best things about World Cup is seeing all the random names. Like Team Malaysia Game Pro dude stepping up for DPS. Like that's pretty funny. Right, let's move on to Overwatch League. There was a lot of news, surprisingly. Haha, who knew? Who knew?
News or
taking 2 weeks
rumors?
off?
News or rumors?
News and rumors.
Rumors.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
rumor,
we'll
like
kind
which
of-
one? Like are
Well,
they?
there's also
is it
news.
news or are they rumors?
There's news and rumors.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys did. Okay.
We'll start from Dante's retirement. We'll start from the
Actual
real
news.
things that have happened.
So we're starting
real
from most
things,
recent
and then we'll get into
working our way
rumors.
back. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. We'll do that. Fuck it, dude. Dante retirement and and then Dante subsequently leaking on stream that Marvel was getting picked up in replacement. The leaks per 10 were crazy. From
Looking like
Dante.
Custa, that
Obviously,
one
they're
off
funny
Yeah.
seasons.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
I did the same
actually.
thing. I fucking
Custom-
retired and I was like, I'm blowing as much as I got.
Nobody's doing it like Custa was. He was putting up LeBron. He was actually putting up LeBron
Yeah,
numbers.
that was LeBron numbers of leagues.
It was like 1 week passed by, another Custa leak, like another. It was
I
like
will stand by. Sideshow threw me under the fucking bus. Like, but you know, it's fair. You know,
Yeah,
sometimes you make mistakes.
Did he throw you under the bus when you revealed that I was casting the Overwatch League in 2020? My big reveal.
Well, no, that
bro.
was mine.
What the
That
fuck,
one
man?
was
What the
on me. You know,
fuck?
I wasn't
Revealing
aware of
your
my
emails
game.
on stream. Goddamn.
To be fair,
bro.
Sideshow is definitely a legendary, accompaniment of all leaks. Like, lest we forget the Neptuno Fusion House link.
Yeah, that was one of them where he
Yeah.
he hit stop streaming and then he just hit start streaming again. So then we started talking about shit and he was streaming. He was like,
Absolute
"Oops, sorry, bro."
moron.
Fucking prick.
Yeah. Well,
But
there
yeah,
he is, huh?
Dante hit the retirement arc and got severely sunburned on his first day of touching grass. So good, yeah. Moisturize and look after your skin. Wear some
Aloe
high
vera. Wear some
SPF.
sunscreen, dude. Do you know why he literally said
Yeah, bro,
the
it's so
clouds are
stupid.
out. The clouds are out, so I couldn't get sunburned.
Don't worry, the
that's like
UV
the
rays
classic.
can't
That's a
get
classic
in.
bro science moment. Classic
Yeah.
bro science moment. I
Which
can't
when
see
you
the
go
sun.
skiing
It's
as
so
well.
I can't get. Yeah,
When-
I
when you
can't
go
It's the
see.
skiing,
inverse,
wear
right? Because
fucking
doesn't the clouds
sun
make
cream
it
too.
worse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
clouds, like it's like water, where like it reflects the light, like makes it even refracts.
reflects.
I think the best thing anyone
Refracts.
can do is put. I mean, I hope he had like sunscreen on his face, but like every day you should be putting sunscreen.
I
on
doubt
your
he
face
put
if you're
sunscreen
going
on
out.
any part of his body because he's
Yeah,
there's no-
I
after
doubt
getting
it,
burnt that
his ass is
fucking
not. I
bad.
remember right after that, like that night, I went out to go eat with people in LA, and Dante was there, and he walked
his
into the
face
restaurant.
red?
He's like, "No, he wasn't. The burn happened after, but he walked in. He's like, "Hey, I just got cut." That was the night Dante learned that he got released, and I mean, his ass was honestly, he was pretty ready for it. Honestly, I think he talked about it, like he gave a statement, but like he was ready to go. He was like old. He was like essentially the old sick animal that crawls off into a bush and just like waits to die type of thing. He's like,
Okay.
it's my time.
That was very
They're, they're trying to teach an old dog new tricks, and you're just
There it
tired
is.
of it.
Yeah, I mean, he
No,
said
I-
that he was ready to go. He said he was going to retire. I think he talked about it on his statement too, but if not, like, I'm sure he doesn't care. But like,
Yeah.
he said he was going to retire this year anyways.
No,
but then Glads gave him an offer.
Yeah, I talked to Dante in the off season. He was like, because I used to do some stuff with the streamers. You're just talking about like, oh, like what are some like income, like potential income numbers or like salary numbers if I was like a full time streamer, like what kind of deal could I get? So he was definitely interested, and then in the content creator route in the off season already, and then he got a good offer from Glads and decided to take it. But
Yeah.
super like I can't like understate like understate, overstate, whatever. Whichever
Maybe
term's
overstate.
relevant.
You can't
yeah,
overstate it.
But like he going from a DPS player to solo tanking and on a team that's supposed to contend, like that is not easy. Like that is not easy. Like, and I think he said it. He's like he had to play Winston against like the best Winstons in the world, and he doesn't have that history of playing Winston at that level. Like he just doesn't, and that takes time. Like I think Winston's like one of the hardest tanks to like learn the game flow and like be good at and competent at, and to play it at, to have to play it day in and day out and not have anyone there to like back you up. Like if you fuck up, like that's it. There's nobody else. Like it's just you're gonna lose the game, right? And I think that's a lot of pressure for sure on him. And it sounds like he's just kind of relieved that he doesn't have to have everything on his shoulders anymore.
To put it into context as well, Kaluj did the exact same thing, but he was already a tank player, right? Like he did that with the San Francisco Shock, and even he has struggled to make that adaptation even as a tank player. Like Dante's like put in so much work. I was watching him during the offseason and chatting with him as well, and he was really trying to learn Wrecking Ball as well in case that became a problem. So it's not just he needs to learn how to play Winston because you don't know what the meta is going to be. He was broad strokes trying to learn everything, and he was hardest working player in the offseason, I would expect.
Also, when your best hero that you were known for, Sombra, is literally hard meta, but there's nobody on the team that could, like, imagine if you had some other tank player that could just, okay, you play Winston for this stage, well, let's try out the Sombra. Like, maybe Glads would have been way better, right, with Danteh on Sombra, but he's the tank now, so, like, he had to sacrifice a lot to be on that roster for sure.
Yeah, I mean, also, you have to remember that this guy, he's an extremely legendary player now when it comes to Overwatch, like in the Western scene. He's been playing since release, essentially, 2016. Yeah. He was one of the last few OGs from season 1 of Overwatch League. That guy played with fucking
Bro, I scrimmed you.
I scrimmed
we all scrimmed
three people in this fucking call right now.
I played with him. He played with XQC. He's been around the block, bro. Like
he's played, and also he started out. He's had a really crazy career because he started out as a tank player, went to DPS, played DPS, tank, then went back to tank. Technically he was an off tank player. So he's had an extremely good career, and he's had like a really long legacy, and like I think it's time for him. I'm glad that he feels that he's ready to go, because like it's always tough, I think, for a lot of players and stuff when like they get cut or stuff. Like they don't necessarily feel ready. Yeah, they don't feel ready to be done. Danteh is like, I'm ready to be done. Like I'm ready for it to be over. So like it's a good way for it to be over. And also it was something that essentially was out of his control, because like technically it sounds like Glads maybe could have kept him if they maybe potentially had the budget to keep both him and Marv, but they couldn't.
Did you see the guard video?
Yes, I did see the guard video.
They spent all their money on the guard video.
The video was not even that big. It wasn't even that crazy. It was just them sitting in the parking lot with different angles.
Yeah. I just like they made a rap video with like grills and like money like everywhere, and I was just like, that was like literally like right after Danteh got cut. But obviously the guard and has no, they don't need to coordinate with.
And also, it was obviously they're not actually shooting thousands of dollars around a parking lot. That was clearly fake money. So it was like whatever. But like, I still think that like Danteh he's had a really good career, and I think it's gonna be exciting to see what he does next, because he's also one of the players that actively made content. Like he really did made an effort to make content. His ass was posting like TikToks and shit.
He's been an influencer for his whole life. Like he was like people knew him from Minecraft before he went to the Overwatch League. So he's been doing this for a long time.
A lot of players don't like keep up with it, right? Once they like get signed. So I think it's pretty cool that he's doing. There's some rumors that maybe he'll try collegiate for a little bit, but like who knows, So like there's a lot of routes for him to go, I think.
Yeah. Is replacement Marvel? What do we think of Marvel on?
Great player,
Mr. Marv.
Probably fixes a lot of their issues potentially where they felt like they needed greater tank flexibility, because Marv 1 has shown that he is really, really flexible, and also he does have a good Winston, a really good Winston when he plays.
Can he get a visa? Or is he going to be playing on pink for the rest of the season?
Don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I also don't know how those the Koreans at Toronto signed got to Toronto that quickly. They like teleported. That's
black
there.
Magic.
I was like, I was like, I'll let the league deal with that one. But that seems, I don't know. He probably play on high ping. I mean, they're on the West Coast, right? So it's not terrible. Like it's not. It shouldn't be terrible. But I assume it's gonna be a bit until he actually gets to LA.
They still have a little bit of time, but not that much, not months.
But I feel like Marvel just in
2 weeks.
He was like the prototypical. I mean, it takes 2 months. You do it fast. So I don't know how long they've had this in process for. I mean, I assume they'd had this in process before they released Danteh. So Maybe maybe another month or so. But I always thought Marvel had like the prototypical like Overwatch 2 tank pool because he played a ton of tanks in Overwatch 1 already, like main tank, off tank. He was like one of the first pro like tank players that like blur the lines because he got a lot of reps on Soul Dynasty playing both roles.
Good ad. He's a great ad. I mean, he's the best possible ad they could have potentially got right now out of the tank pool.
This is potentially like what people expected the Glads to be. Like in terms of performance, because they've just not been doing hot at all. Like they have so many parts, and maybe Marvel is the one to fix.
I mean, it still doesn't fix a lot of their overarching, like all the other issues that they have. Is like
that's true.
Like the Mr. Marv 1 fixes their tank problem, where like they didn't feel they were flexible enough, and they felt like their Winston gameplay wasn't necessarily like at the top tier they needed per se. Because Danteh he was a great like flex tank when you could put him on like the Ram, when you could put him on like other things that weren't necessarily Winston. Like he definitely held his own, and like even his Winston wasn't like bad, it just wasn't like insanely top tier mechanics.
Dante's Ram was really
exactly. He was good.
At one point he was
Ram meta.
He was one of the best Rams in the league.
Like they're not necessarily getting an upgrade on Ram, but like they're just getting a much better like all around
Winston player. I don't even think tank player. I literally just think it's a main tank player. Like they needed someone who's gonna feel comfortable on Winston and gonna feel, because like if we're looking at the meta right now as well, you're looking how it's shaking out. It doesn't feel like we're moving very far off of what we did in the last season. So I don't know. We haven't seen a ton of scrims. We haven't seen live, but like seems like a lot of people still playing Sombra. So unless season 6 comes in with like a sledgehammer. Which it might.
There's no way. Like, it's still going to be Winston.
No, well, the thing is, season 6, I think, could be a sledgehammer. You got a new support coming in here. They're probably going to want to get rid of Sombra out of the meta. Like, I think season 6 could be a sledgehammer, but we still have, 4 games, 6 games, 5 games to be
hopefully
played on
by
this patch?
Playoffs, they'll realize, like, Sombra's still good right now. Like,
she's...
they've done nothing to discourage that.
So maybe that will kind of sort of...
The what rework? The Lifeweaver?
No, not Lifeweaver. Sombra. They said they were tweaking Sombra in some.
But that's not coming anytime soon.
It's not coming for a bit.
Yeah,
was that not season 6 or was that beyond?
But like that, maybe it's season 6. But that's what I mean. Like we still have like most of the qualifiers and most of the knockouts. Or what's happening now on Sombra.
I mean, they haven't even started tweaking Sombra, so like who knows what those tweaks are? Like they try to tweak Brig for an entire year, no? So
yeah.
We'll see.
It's that fucking era.
And now she's hot meta.
Like Brig got nerfed so like every time they're like it's like okay, well it's not enough. Okay, it's still not enough. All right, well we're just gonna ban
problem
goats.
When your support has armor and a shield,
actually.
bro. Like
Glads will be better though with this pickup. I just don't think it's gonna fix all their problems because they still have some other issues like with like their hero rotations and like overall player strength and like.
I mean, they lost to Sombra. I mean, I don't know how rusty Danteh is on Sombra, but I mean because he just played tank, but. I would imagine, like, if I were to bet, like, if he were still want to be in the league, some team would probably, that needs a Sombra specialist, would probably pick him up. Or at least take a chance on him.
Let's move on to another tank swap around. The Shanghai Dragons, yes. They have finally got a tank, everybody. They've got a tank. Fleta is now a coach.
Classic.
Yes.
That's an esports classic right there.
And Fate has been brought in again to the Shanghai Dragons. So Fate rejoins and Fleta to coach. Esports moment.
Well, the thing is, like, I think this just makes the team dramatically better. Like, I think you take away a weak link of Fleta. Like, regardless of what you think of Fate as like a tank player these days, especially in a Winston meta, Fate's going to be a massive upgrade for this team. If Hisu and fucking Viper can keep playing the same way they are, like, I actually think Shanghai can like beat teams in the Eastern region. Like, I actually think they'll be somewhat more competitive. Well, definitely more competitive than they were. I don't know how I feel about this Fleta to coach thing. Like, people have done this like so many times and it like never works out. Like, not all players are built to be coaches. So we'll see how it plays out, but it's definitely an upgrade for this team.
I'm just confused why they couldn't do this in the offseason instead of mid-season. I'm pretty sure their scrims weren't going too hot. At least when we scrimmed them like with Fleta on tanks. Like, I don't know why they had to suffer through half a season of this instead of just, hey, let's just pick up Fate to begin with because Fate was a free agent. So
you didn't even need you don't even need to practice to see it wouldn't work. We all looked at this team on paper and we were like, that shit's not going to work. And then it didn't work for all the reasons everyone anticipated. Like, players just can't transition to tank, aka Danteh as well, who was the best of them. And then they just have like the support issues as well. So
listen, leave the role swapping to Changoon. Like, if you don't have the Changoop, like you're not You're not allowed to do this stuff. Like you.
I mean, technically, Teru did it as well for Justice, and it's been pretty.
But
good.
he went back to
what I mean.
contenders, and it
That's
took a
what I mean.
while.
Teru was the chain goop.
That's true. That is chain goop.
That's the chain goop, and now it's
That's
Fitz.
fair.
So I'm saying
This team could be good.
Yeah. I mean, this team could have existed preseason.
Yeah.
Yes,
Instead of
I don't. That is the weird
season.
thing about this. Why did they not? Because
Like,
we know they like Fate. We know Moon likes Fate. Like, why would he have not made this? To me, this is either like some sort of weird budgetary thing where they start out like, we'll put Fleta on this because like maybe
it was Fleta. It wasn't just Fleta. It was Fleta and Diem.
Yeah.
They had two people that switched roles.
Maybe
like,
Rush just liked Fleta more than Fate, and then he's like, or not Rush, Moon liked Fleta more than Fate, and then he's like, you know what, Fleta?
Well, they've
it's
been
not working
boys
out.
for years, though. Like they go way back. The thing is, I think if Fate wasn't on this team, I think it was more likely his decision, like Fate's decision, or like I don't want to be on this team. I want to see if my options, like maybe he wants to try and get on like a soul or something. But then yeah, like when that doesn't happen,
you need a Fleta interview. Like, was this his?
That's true.
Like, why is his ass not on DP? Like, why tank and then why like? So instead of moving him back to DPS, like, all right, you're the coach now. Like, what happened? Like, what's going on here? Like, whose idea was this? And like, I think it'd be interesting to know. And then it also, I would love to pick Changoon. I keep calling him Changoon.
Changoon.
But Changoon's mind on like, how do you identify these DPS players that you're like, yeah, I think he'd be a great Brig, or like, yeah, I think he's gonna be a great Kiriko. Like how in the world does he come up with this?
I mean, I feel like that's like him, and you know who also did that a lot was Brad Rajani, aka Sephi. Brad was always like, let's put a DPS player on support, you know, like they were gonna put like or like random players or like super.
Has
on,
it
like,
ever worked like effectively, like super effective?
Teru.
No,
Teru?
but like even Teru's not like a super effective, and it took him like years, didn't it? Like his Brig was. Well, because he first switched to Brig on Vancouver Titans.
I don't consider that. I think the.
But then he went to contenders and played support in contenders. So can you really give that to the Changoop? Like it was already a pre-formulated thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then well, Fitz is the evolution of the Changoop has evolved. Fitz is literally mid-season, like you're playing Brig for us now, like and Kiriko and Anna, like I don't know, he's played like 3 different heroes at least.
Custa, mute in Discord, please. Thank you.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Yeah, you unmuted yourself.
Sorry. I have a hotkey that I accidentally clicked. I didn't realize.
And there was a flasher in the bottom right corner of the screen saying "custom mute in Discord." Your ass was just not looking. Your ass
no,
was
I'm not reading
looking.
anything. I got the fucking Wikipedia page up.
Yeah.
We're chilling.
Well, I think overall this team though, with this swap, if Fate works out pretty well, I think Dragons could theoretically be like it could go back to being like a top 3 team in APAC, maybe.
They could recover.
Top 3.
I think. Yeah, no joke.
No, whoa.
No joke. No joke. No joke. No, I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's unfair at all.
No.
Dragons.
Over who?
Viper
Fucking. All right, list them out. No.
Okay, so right now
let's
they're
walk through step by
top
step.
they're top teams. Top teams for sure. You have Spark, obviously.
Yep.
You have Charge.
Yep.
And then like then I think like you have fucking
Dragons,
Infernal. No, and then
apparently.
Infernal.
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a chance that like Dragons could like make that. I think they could be. I don't think they're gonna be. I think they'll be like sitting around like that 4-ish, 5 place now for sure. Okay. And then they'll be like potentially breaking into the top 3 because they had really good performances when they literally their team was essentially non-functional. You know, when they had moments where Viper would just like roll, just completely dominated a lobby like solo. I feel like there's and they have good players. They have like Bebe, they have Iris. Like Iris,
Gangnam on main support. They got lots of great players.
The Gangnam main support is not inspirational, to be fair. But like they have a fucking Hisu. Like I think overall, like this team is good. It's just they couldn't work because they had essentially they were down a player, and the player they were down was their tank player.
You also just didn't bring up Soul Infernal, which was like the best.
I did bring up Infernal.
I
said Infernal, Charge, Spark. You know, with the 3.
I just really you think they could be 4th?
No, I think they'll be sitting into the 4th. I think they'll be. Well, I think it could be better. I think they'll be better than Dynasty.
I think the upgrades that Dynasty have made will probably make them better in this stage. Like I agree, Shanghai's going to compete. Then we haven't even talked about Dallas Fuel, which is a team that you like can never really count out as well. Like I think Shanghai will be competitive with the bottom end, but I think saying that they're just going to rocket to the middle of the pack with Fate, I just don't. I don't see that. I don't see it. I don't see it. You're off the Changoop, mate.
I see it. No, I'm on the moon.
we're in the second half of the season now. There's a potential they could recover a lot.
I
of
think
places in the
their
standings.
player quality is high enough, and they've shown
Yeah.
some decent performances, even when they literally don't have a tank player. Like they would be
potential,
playing
man.
4v5, and they're missing their tank essentially, and they would still have moments where it looked like, okay, there's something potentially happening here. I think the Dragons could have a resurgence in the second half.
Avast is with the moon shrooms.
Yeah,
I'm on the moon
the
shrooms.
moon
I'm on the moon
He's on-
shrooms right
he's
now.
on the
I'm not
moon
saying they're going to be
shrooms.
an automatic, like they're going to be really good. I just think they're going to like potentially make their way up into the upper echelon again with this. So as long as Fate performs up to snuff, that's
Dude,
like the big qualifier.
4 out of 7 is not the upper echelon.
yeah, that's like
That's
definition of mid.
No,
yeah.
but I'm saying like they can punch into third. They can punch into third. You know.
I
I don't
think
see
a
them
lot
being,
of things are
I
gonna
don't see
click
them
for
being
that.
better than
Nah.
Infernal. I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
they got to at least be better than Infernal to punch third, right? And I think that's. I don't think that's.
I can see it. I can see
The
it.
only way I see it is if Charge shits the bed. All the meta moves away from Spark, and they have to play Brawl or something like that. Like I don't know. I think you're cooking here.
Hey, people have doubted me many times, but many times they've been wrong. I've also been wrong many
Yeah.
times. But you know,
a couple of times.
so it just works out. We'll just see. We're gonna have to see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I like it. I like that take. That's a good one.
I mean, I'm thinking that. Well, look, we're getting a big patch season 6. Anything's possible halfway through the year. You know, if we add additional tournaments, we might be able to find out sooner, which would be crazy. But unfortunately, we only have 2. Sad game. Actually, sad game. Let's stick with the East. Pineapple to Spark. New pickup. Mr. Pineapple. So, I feel like
As
is
support.
Pineapple. Yeah. Is Pineapple and the rest of the Eastern players, are they ever just permanently worried that they're going to be randomly thrown on support or a different role that's not their main role? If I was an APAC player, I just would live in fear. Oh, they're going to put me on DPS. Oh, they're going to put me on tank. Oh, I'm going to get trade support. Like, it doesn't feel like any player right now is safe in APAC.
Well, they weren't
flipped
playing
to another
in
fucking role.
Overwatch League before that, right? They were on roads.
Yeah,
So
Wait, what
But,
are
like-
you playing on roads? What was his ass playing
they
on
were
roads?
DPS.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
this is.
You telling me there's not a better flex support out there? Like there's no one else other than Pineapple role
That's what I'm
swapping.
fucking saying. It just doesn't make any sense, man.
Well, it depends. I don't know what the current.
I guess
don't
it's
understand-
Chinese market, right?
Because like it's the Chinese market, right? So the only other main support I can think off the top of my head is like Coldest.
Oldest,
Hey,
yeah.
Coldest.
that boy kind
that guy was good. Like I
He's
would
good,
rather
but I mean,
Coldest
it's
over
like, but
Pineapple.
I haven't, like I said, I'm just maybe they see something there, like because I feel like the pipeline from DPS to support is a more proven pipeline than like anyone else to like tank per se, you know?
Yeah, that's very fair.
I'm just like, what is he doing that Lynx or Monk couldn't do? I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see
Yeah, because Monk is really
Lynx
good.
and Monk is a very
flexible.
solid backline. And, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see it.
Well,
I-
maybe they just want the option. They don't feel like if they're playing like double flex support or something, then maybe they don't feel like Lynx can cover it.
But like Hongzhou Spark, right? Like they're trying to compete with the top dogs, right? Like that Monk Lengths were an issue in like in the mid-season matters, like in that playoffs because they just couldn't hang with all the world-class teams. Pineapple isn't going to be that pinch hitter that's going to like get you over the line. Like let's be honest, like
Pineapple, the world-class flex support that just came out of nowhere, right?
yeah, just come out of nowhere. Maybe I'd be wrong. I would love it. Like Pineapple was good when he played Tracer for them last year. Like he's a good player. I don't believe in these kind of role swaps, especially when it's worked for teams where they're like bottom tier and then they fill in somebody, right?
Yeah.
But at the top end, you can't just like come in and be like, well, now you need to match Shu. Now you need to match Violet. Like it doesn't work.
I don't believe it unless you're the goon. That's
Yeah.
my take.
Unless you're the goon.
They don't have the goon on this team anymore, so it is
Yeah.
true. They're
Yeah.
missing that aspect. I mean, I think China just be doing silly shit with Overwatch always. So like
True.
this is pretty par for the course. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna write it off because at this point I can't really write off DPS to support swaps that much. Like if they're just gonna play like a flex support
mean,
necessarily.
But this is strange because he literally only played, like, if he had played flex support for Rhodes and won content or whatever, like, fine. You know, like, give him a shot. But, like, he literally just played DPS for them, and then now he's like, okay, well, now he's joining us as a support. Like, what is, like, I don't understand. What he just had it.
Yeah.
He had a trial.
He
and
better
just
have a
killed
rank
it,
1
like,
account. If he doesn't have a rank 1 support account, I'm fucking yelling.
I just want to know who else, like, what other Chinese flex support, because it's they're obviously looking for
Yeah.
Chinese players.
Yeah.
Other than Coldest, what other options were there?
But I mean,
if they
like,
wanted to.
Why not Coldest if they, I don't know.
why do you need a flex? Like, why do they need a support, right? Like, maybe there's something going on internally with the team that we just aren't aware of, right? But like, from what we saw so far, Link's a Monk is going to be the best of them so far. It might not be perfect, but it'll be fine.
Maybe Pineapple is like a life weaver specialist, you know, and they're just ready. He's ready for when they finally unnerf or they finally buff Life Weaver to the point where they're playable, and then that's Pineapple. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
We'll have to see on that
I live
one.
in internal fear, man. If I was any player in APAC right now, just getting shoved on a different role, I'd be surprised. Honestly, at this point, I'd be surprised if they even play. Like, if they didn't play for the rest of the season, I'd be like, okay, that's fair enough. Like,
I mean, if you told me they signed him as his actual role DPS, I would still say he doesn't break into that rotation.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just a very questionable pickup. But then we don't, especially with like the Chinese teams, like it's very hard to know what's kind of going on behind the scenes. Like every now and then we get a brief look in with the North American teams, it feels like, but they're like the furthest reach possible, I feel, with teams like Charge and Spark and whatnot. So it's tough to tell. Okay, I think the biggest news of this week needs to be touched on ASAP. So, Eternal retrialed their whole fucking roster. So, who's really surprised? Once again, in the middle of the fucking year, Vegas Eternal retrialed the entire roster, and they picked up 3 players. 2U, Irony, and Knife. Big pickup. So, Lucamino, Vulcan, Malthal, Knife, 2U, and Irony. So, this team. Is it going to pop off? Is it not? I just cannot believe it's happened again. Well, at least they didn't drop their whole roster this time. It's only half, but goddamn.
Mouthful's off.
Okay, these are the dropped.
Sorry,
yeah, these are the dropped, and then the
they dropped.
They dropped it
Lucamino,
off.
Vulcan,
dropped at the top, and then picked up on the bottom. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
To you, Irony.
Yiska actually did a pretty interesting interview with these players and sort of gave some added context of like, you know, why did they join this team and stuff like that. For a lot of these guys, it was like they wanted the opportunity to play in the West, which I don't know if I 100% agree. Like, it's going to be hard. It's the exact same issue that the Vegas Eternal ran into last year, right? When they decided, hey, we're going to like pick up a complete new roster. They don't have enough time to scrim. They weren't in person, and they just like never caught up. And I'm worried that this roster is going to have those issues. They don't have an active translator as far as I'm aware. So I don't know how they're effectively going to communicate with Dove and Rack Attack.
Well,
yeah, is Avala just going to be the translator now for like everything?
I guess.
Like, but that doesn't feel great. So
does anything about the Eternal really feel great?
Yeah, but that's sort of what I feel like. I actually think Knife, to You, and Irony are great players, and I think they could be on teams. For me, I'm just like, this feels like a dangerous thing for them because I don't know if they're going to find the success on this team with such a short turnaround that I think they're really hoping for.
Well, also, how are they getting have they been working on their visas as well? Because they have to get 3 players.
No, I think they're going to play. I don't think they're bothering their visas. I assume they're just going to play remote.
They're just playing full remote?
And they said they're playing on 180 ping. And they said, so they're playing at 3 a.m. full remote on 180 ping. Like, it's like, there's so many things working against this team.
I mean, this is actually turbo fucked. I mean, this is over. This is so Jover. This is actually. Okay. We're not so back. We're Jover.
I'll tell you why. I think it makes sense for the players though, because they're still making more than they would in contenders.
Yeah, they're making a lot more.
Because you don't. Korean contenders players are not making outside of prize pool. They're like maybe if they have an org, they have like a team house, and they get provided food and like lodging, but they're not actually making that much money. So I think to them it's like they're taking the money and they get to prove or potentially prove themselves against the top talent.
But don't you think you would have a better shot playing in the Eastern region, playing in those contenders teams, rather than playing on the Vegas Eternal in the West? Like, if you wanted to compete, I actually think playing in the East is more competitive than playing in the West on the Vegas Eternal with the ping, with those issues. I agree with the money. Like, it's probably not a ton of money because it's minimum. It's a short-term contract. But, it's probably like 10 grand, 15 grand, which is no joke of money.
15, yeah.
Like, it's no joke of money, so maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, I mean, and they're playing remote, so it's like they're doing the same thing they would do normally, just on for the Owl stage, and they get more exposure in the Western region. Like, I think there's a chance. I think there's nothing even if they like, because you don't expect them to win that much anyways. But it's like if they have good individual performances, that could translate into trials in the off season they otherwise wouldn't get, into potential contracts. So I think the upside makes sense for them to play. Because like end of the day, like you're always gonna take if you have no other options, you take the chance. You take the shot to play an Owl. Right, over just staying.
I think that's where we disagree. I actually think you're better off holding off and joining a better team when you have a good career in contenders, and there's like that expectation around you rather than going, and like there's a, maybe for these guys it's different, but like, you know, I think the Vegas Eternal team that was last year is a prime example of that. Like maybe Luke Mino and Rack Attack would be on a more successful team if they hadn't decided to join Vegas Eternal and that team just be like an absolute dumpster fire. And like a lot of players' careers have really started and ended at this Vegas Eternal team, right? Like Wub, Mouthful, those kind of guys. It was not beneficial for them to join those teams.
I think it's like a Western. I will say, we've had this discussion before, and I feel like I've come to the conclusion now that I think it's a region difference. So like, I think in the West, if you get on a really bad team and it kills your, and you essentially do terribly, there's way less opportunities to go back into Overwatch League than there are for Korean players. Additionally, currently with how teams are structured.
Yeah.
Additionally, the West, there's way less active competition and like you know, that belief in like this is a really good, like great recruitment ground for tier 2 talent per se, comparatively to Korean contenders, right? Because there are Korean players that leave the Overwatch League that like just randomly show the fuck up back up in contenders all the time. Like look at the most recent like rosters for like O2 Blast and Sin Priza and like all the teams over there. They're constantly cycling players that we have seen in Overwatch League that go up to Overwatch League that have been in contenders for a while. Like I think realistically for a Korean player, there's less risk to playing remotely for a team like this for half the year than there is, especially when you were just playing and performing well in contenders before this, versus like a Western player where the opportunities are currently less because there's just less Western roster being built, and there's also way less support. And also for the West too, there's just more incentive for Western players that like if they have a bad year or whatever, there's a lot more incentive to just go do like collegiate or retire than there is for Korean players that can just go back into the system and contenders typically.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like worst case scenario, they do badly and then they just go back to contenders and they trial again, right? Yeah. I think you're right. Honestly, for these guys, I think it makes more sense.
Also, dude, if they get a map, they double the Eternal map score of the season. Like, they literally double the map score. So, like, hey, a 100% improvement from 2U, Irony, and Knife. Good fucking job, lads.
I mean,
keep it the fuck up.
Also, you think about the exposure. They're skirming. They're going to be, I mean, when they can get owl skirms, they'll be skirming against owl teams that they otherwise wouldn't. Like, I would never, like, you know, I might see 2U. I might, like, he pops off in a scrim, like, you know, who knows, like from there, like, or Knife or Attack or any of them. So I think it's, or did I said two different names, but Irony.
Knife. You said Knife Attack.
Not an Attack. Yeah. Knife.
But yeah.
No, Knife Attack is that's something that happens in London. That's
in London. In London.
Listen, Knife is also a player in Korean.
Yeah, Knife is also a player, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think this team though, I don't think it can be worse than what they had.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm excited to watch this team, which is a step up from the thing because
I'm pretty sure we're catching the first one, buddy.
Yeah,
so,
I'm looking forward to it. That's it. I'm looking forward to split thing. I think it's a step up. I'm shocked that Vegas honestly wanted to make changes in this season. Like I thought they were just going to ride it out. So you know, I'm glad they're making moves.
Yeah, because why would you even bother? Also, you know, there was this drama.
Mouthful murdered
Avala. Mouthful went a little crazy on the timeline on Avala. I'm interested to like, because obviously this is one of those things where people talk about it, but then it's like, what does that mean by that point by boost her PR? Because I can't think of a single thing of all has done recently that has boosted her PR that has somehow benefited. Like, so I'm always interested to see what the specifics of that is, but it's very clear that like for some players at least, they felt like this was not a very safe environment, like a non-toxic environment to work in. I also take it with a grain of salt in some ways because I'm like, players aren't always the most reliable source of information with like how their emotions filter through to text. But also it's like, it's very clear this is a bottom performing team. There's been multiple players that have left very disgruntled. This isn't like a one and done or like every once in a while thing to where like this, like something is going on there. And also I just think because as someone that's seen how organizations work now from multiple different ones, I'm interested to see like, how much of this is also the organization as like an overarching thing not giving support to the team that's essentially that's a cause even more problems, right, than just like a pure direct management issue to these players? Because it's very clear that the environment for Eternal is bad. The environment for Eternal is clearly there's something fucked up in the environment there. If some player is going to come out and make a post like this and it's echoed by like other former players. I think that's the thing. It's being echoed. Like this isn't the first story. Like I agree. Like when like Bembest came out, I was like, oh, that's kind of fucked up. But like, as you said, it's like through the lens of like players who aren't always like unbiased themselves. But like it's enough stories and enough cases that I think that there has to be something there.
The consistency is too high. It feels like
something is fucked up there. But I don't know. Like, I mean, that's just like a situation where I'm like, is this like? I also don't know because Eternal clearly has no resources. They clearly have no resources. They don't even have like a socials person currently at the time because the people that were under contract with them, like T, they left. So like, I don't even know like what the org has in terms of like to cover their own team even anymore. Like, I guess they must have someone because they made goodbye posts for players. So and they're clearly all minimum. They don't have a team house. They're playing full remote. They're not getting their new players visas, it sounds like. So like, also, is there really ever going to be a true, like, even if you had the best GM on earth theoretically, was there ever going to be like players leaving the situation happy with like what's going on in Eternal? Like, I don't know. And that's like one of these things where I feel like it's what we talked about, like why we would love to potentially see the ecosystem open up, because it's clear that this team is not invested. This team isn't caring about like, it's not even about like putting forward money. It's more so just having the modicum of like, we want to support them in some way. It's like essentially outside the salary, there is nothing really being done for the team. You know, it's just like a Valiant situation. So that's like one of those things where I think that this is like, it's never going to produce a good system and with players that are happy or produce consistently good results or even good results at all.
It's going to be interesting to see how this team ends up playing. Of course, we're not gonna have to wait long, so that's gonna be good. So me and Scott, I think we're covering the first game, so it's gonna be an interesting time.
Are you guys casting the first one?
Yeah, I think we're casting the first Vegas game. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I know it wouldn't surprise you if casting every Vegas game, but we'll have to wait and see. One bit of news I did want to touch on before we kind of round things out was the shock rumors that have come out that Arns is coming back, and then I saw one actually this morning that Striker is actually not coming back because Striker left Boston, and then Arns apparently is going back to Shock, and then Cal is like,
dude, who are these sources?
Going to Shock. Like, dude, this is why I don't want to touch on it for very long, because these sources are just, they're on crack.
We've decentralized.
What is happening?
Sources do not mean anything. Sources do not mean anything.
Back in the day, we had two people. We had like fucking Michael, and we had Halo, you know?
Halo, yeah.
Back in the day. Now there's like 50 different accounts that all randomly are leaking.
We've entered into like underage, like pseudo like journalism. I mean, they don't even call themselves journalists. Like, I can't even be mad at them, because like I had my issues with Halo because he called himself a journalist, and he definitely didn't always uphold like the journalistic standards, like when he was reporting stuff. But these are just straight up like, you got a bunch of let a bunch of kids like run wild on the playground is what's happening right now, and they all got their sources. I don't know what sources those are.
I think they just know people in tier 2 and tier 3, because that seems like, it just seems like things that have been like passed around.
This
and
is grapevine stuff. But it's like bottom of the grapevine stuff. Like, they're like the last to know, and they're like, like Striker, odds, like maybe.
The worst thing is they just get it wrong, and then they're just like, lol, get owned, and then they move on. But then we take what they say as like, you know, as law in a lot of ways.
Well, theoretically reported on stuff. Now
they've gotten it right. They have gotten it right.
They've gotten it right, like a lot.
They've also done stuff like shock announcement in 30 minutes, and then like what? I was like, how would they even know? Like, who do they have in bed on the inside? That's like, yeah, we're gonna announce in 30 minutes. It's like, how do they know that?
Let's just hypothetically
and they didn't.
Striker were come back to Shock.
That would
legendary.
Be
legendary. Honestly,
funniest thing ever.
Yeah,
funny. Just literally the funniest thing ever. I mean, like, I think, imagine like we made jokes about it like 3 years ago, and it keeps happening. It keeps happening over and over and over again. At this point, we have to admit that Krusty cannot give. If it happens, Krusty can't give up Striker. He can't give up Striker. Striker and Krusty are linked like Moon and
there is
Fleta and Moon
and blackmail material. Like he must have documents on Krusty or something, because that is crazy.
If you love someone, you gotta let them go. That's what Krusty's done, but like 3 times. Like it just doesn't stop. Like, they're coming back.
Insane.
Like, they just love each other.
It's almost like a rom-com, you could say. They just keep coming back.
I don't know. I mean, I think the way he got released from Boston left it like super, like, what's next?
Very open,
What do you mean, what's next? Like, he didn't announce retirement, he didn't announce anything, so it's like, maybe, like, I have no idea. I honestly have no idea if he's on the Shock. I mean, who knows?
What if he just goes,
nobody knows, not even the leakers know.
I'm doing military service, actually. I'm just bouncing, doing military service.
And then he'll come back for the playoffs. He'll get an exemption for the playoffs, play some Reaper, win a championship, and move on with his life again.
Hey, back to military service.
But like, here's the thing. Like, so It'll be interesting to see what the Shock do, because we've heard so many rumors just in this like short mid-season break of like, what is this roster going to look like? Because the rumors are they're going for Western players so they can get like visas really quickly. Their backline hasn't been performing well. They want to uproot that. We haven't really gotten any indication from the actual team that is happening. So we'll fucking see. I don't know. Do you guys like the idea that you think that would you like it if they replace their backline with a Western backline, like Contenders backline?
I don't think Finn needs to go yet. I haven't been impressed with Finn, but I think it's really tough when the team has clearly been struggling and he hasn't had the strongest support partner. You know? Like, because Vindime, like,
what happened to Vindime? Like, how did this happen? He was so good last year.
I mean, I feel like also maybe it's people extrapolating from them being on a team in a weaker region, essentially.
It's a sophomore slump thing, for sure.
Yeah, like, it could just be a slump. People were being like, well, maybe he doesn't have like as dedicated a coach with like Toby, who was a main support specific player. So like, maybe they had someone that could more directly coach him. Like, like there's a lot of like different potentials.
Be not good at playing against Sombras. Because that's like that literally just been Sombra Central, and like some Lucio's can adapt and some Briggs can adapt and some others it's harder for them to like, because to be good, to live as main support against Sombra, you have to literally like be able to visualize the game in a way like you don't know where the Sombra is. You just have to anticipate like, oh, he might be here, so I need to like make sure my angling, like I don't take too much damage, or like make sure I spy check this, or make sure I'm not in a position to get hacked as Lucio. Like it's really, really hard and stressful to play main support against these good Sombra teams. And I think maybe he just doesn't, he's not cut out for, he might be good in like when there's no Sombra, when it's just like a rush meta, or like last year when there wasn't too much Sombra, right?
It's kind of like FD. Like FD God is a player who's had that throughout his career. Like he's a great Lucio player, right, and a great main support player. But like in certain metas, like he really struggles to like get anything done. Like a Sombra meta, where it's like, as Albert said, the game just changes. So I don't know. Like I think this would be really drastic changes by Krusty if this is the direction that he went, where he had decided to cut a lot of these players that have a lot of potential to be great players, and they have been great players in the past, to just sort of throw that away in a sense, and just sort of try and grab some band-aid solutions in some North American Contenders players. It could work. The Krusty crack pipe has worked many times in the past, but I just don't see that this is a successful path forward for them to turn things around.
Yeah, I think just sticking with the backline that they have right now, just kind of maybe hoping for a meta swap. Maybe getting Striker back would be comical. I'd be happy if Arns came back for real, but I just like.
I would be more. I don't understand why theoretically they're trying to swap out Heesang when I don't think Heesang has been a problem for this team.
I think the hero pools of those two players is causing a lot of issues within that team. That's just like my outside perspective.
Maybe a hero pool. It could be.
I think Proper is the best tracer, and then Heesang's best hero is also tracer. He's just not as good as Proper, which is like not it's not the end of the world, but it's like when you have both of them there, then it's like you're having Proper play other heroes that,
which is also why Striker doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah,
because
Striker's got a stronger
Striker's like a Reaper.
He's like a hit
sure.
Here's my thing. Do you guys think Striker can hang at the top end of hit scan these days? Like, when was the last time he actually played hit scan in the league? Like 2019? Cool.
I mean, he also
because he hasn't played it since Arns joined the Shock.
I mean, he also has two very good hit scans in front of him. I mean, Boston does have 3 hit scan players, so
maybe he is great, and we haven't seen
Striker. I don't think Striker is like out of the question. It's more so just weird because like why? Because like let me also think about what the rest of Heesang's hero pool. So his best hero is Tracer, but didn't Heesang also? Did he play? Was he mostly of like afterwards?
He was a flex,
right?
Yeah,
he was just kind of a hyper flex.
He plays the same thing as Proper, but doesn't play hit scan, and I think that's the thing. They need a hit scan player.
That's the problem. Yeah,
Arns makes sense.
Arns kind of makes sense.
Arns does not make sense.
Yeah,
Arns makes sense.
I will take Striker a million years over Arns.
I disagree with that.
Why disagree with that? Arns had one good season, then he played and he fell off.
And
he
was the best at it. He had one good season and he was the best at it. And it was more recent than when Striker played hit scan. Like Striker was a good hit scan during his time.
Most recent playing, he fell off a cliff.
Wait, when was this? When did he fall off a cliff?
The Sombra metas.
And that's the thing. You can sign Arns, but you need to sign another player with him. He needs to come in as like, if we're playing Sojourn, we're playing Widowmaker.
Striker's available. There's another guy that's
and then Striker plays Sombra. Yeah, like honestly, if they do proper Striker Sombra and then Arns just comes in to play hit scan, I'm okay with that.
The other problem I don't want Arns, and this is just like Just it's the same reason that like it's because if players have shown in the past, and this is not a slight against Ons. This doesn't mean that Ons is like there's anything wrong. It's just more so if it's a player's had issues committing in the past multiple times, like because Ons got signed to Glads, retired, right? You know, like it was like Ons has talked a lot about his struggle with his own mental health, and like I don't know what Ons' current level of comfort and like where he feels like it's not my responsibility to speak for him, right? But I also don't like when teams go to players that they feel comfortable because they know them, when the player themselves has shown that they're not like typically they're ready to essentially leave whenever, right? Like anything could happen and they're like, I don't know if I can do it anymore. Like it's just not a good foundation to build a team on. You don't want to be and this is
They've literally built their foundation off of Striker, where that's like his MO.
No, but Striker, but the thing is, Striker stays until they don't need him anymore.
Man, that's I guess Ons leaves, but while they still need him.
No. Like the thing is, Ons just is like, okay, I'm not like I'm.
Oh,
I
so
don't
you're fine because Striker doesn't leave. Striker leaves when they're ready for him to leave. You're saying you don't like Ons because Ons leaves when he's
He'll just leave. Like you know,
You don't know that, bro. You don't
know that, but I do know that Striker stays until the time is ready. You know, like essentially, Striker.
He's there when they need him most.
But once
you're saying Striker and Krusty have an understanding, you know, like
I
when
think they do. I think they have an understanding.
When Krusty's ready to throw him back in the ocean, he's like, okay,
essentially,
that's fine.
Striker's like he's like a stray cat. You know, like he shows up and he's gonna like stay there for like a week, eat your food, and then he's gonna wander away. And then he's going to leave after that. But you know he's there for a week. He'll be there for at least 1 week. No matter what. And then he'll leave right after that. I'm just saying that, like, for me, from, like, I don't want to, like... But if Ons is coming out
Ons playing Contenders right now, or is he just streaming?
He was coaching.
He's a content.
His most recent competitive experience was coaching.
Well, he's not coaching currently. His team disbanded, right? Like
that's the thing. His most recent competitive.
How long was he coaching? He was coaching for like 2 weeks, and his team disbanded.
Like maybe like a month or something.
Wait, was it that quick? Holy shit!
It wasn't that long.
I feel like he got announced, and all of a sudden his team disbanded after they like.
SLT.
It was actually
literally weeks.
It was actually 11 days. 11 days.
Literally coached for like weeks.
So I don't know. I just think that like to me, Ons hasn't shown since that one season where he was amazing, and also we had one of the best teams. Also, would you argue that the current Shock team is the same level of strength as the team that was built around that particular season? I would say no.
Here's where I'm going to counterpoint. Is like I agree with you that I think Ons is a wild card. We know how mechanically talented he is, but everything else is just a massive question mark, especially his hero pool. But
he's also only really mechanically talented on like pure hit scan.
They need to find a hit scan player and a Sombra player. It can be someone who has that hero pool, but they need to just let Proper play his own heroes without cannibalizing someone else's hero pool.
I would take Striker because also I think Striker Sombra's better.
Also,
if we stay in the Sombra meta, then that's
Striker. I think Striker actually makes the most sense. Actually, but I think gambling on his hit scan, I think is hard. Like maybe he still has it. I don't know.
So I don't know. This is just like the GM and me think. It's like okay. So if allegedly you're signing both, you can get Striker and he can do the hit scan stuff while you wait for Ons' visa to process, and then once Ons gets here, then he becomes the hit scan specialist, and then Striker can be the Sombra or whatever, the hit scan flex. Where Ons is like the sniper, the hard hit scan specialist.
Yeah,
that's just in my head. If that were to happen, that's how I would rationalize it. I don't actually know. Are there better like options out there besides that?
Like chat's spamming probe, right? And like that is someone that obviously makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But Krusty has done this in the past where he would much prefer having people who are in person, not dealing with visas, because the chances that fucking Shock spent like 5 months getting their own players for this season into the country. There's no chance Probe ever makes it into the country. Like,
yeah, I mean, also I think there's another player that I think I remember watching them, but it's like for Pantera, like Alien, I believe is their name.
Alien, yeah.
Yeah, like there's other great options that aren't like that's the other thing. Besides all this, we just don't. They don't have to have either of them. Literally, don't pick either of these players up. I think there's other options, but
also like what you also have to think like why aren't they in the league? Because I know Alien got tryouts. I would highly doubt
maybe shit the bed in tryouts or something.
Right, like I think there's a reason why they're not in the league right now.
Yeah.
Because I think going in, people are like, oh, like Alien's like for sure he's a pickup. Like he's gonna be a pickup. Someone's gonna pick him up. Like well, Infernal, he was on T1, right? Like Infernal didn't pick him up. I mean,
yeah, but they have M3, right?
Well, M3 and Zest, though, so I mean,
sure.
like,
but I'm saying nobody else in the Eastern region picked him up either. So I think you got to think about that. And if they have experience, like maybe they did trial him and they're like not impressed. Like, I would be shocked if Probe didn't get shock tryouts in the offseason, right?
Exactly, right? Like, it's not like the GMs just have a blindfold on or Crusty has a blindfold on. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't see these players who are popping up in contenders. Like, there's usually a reason why these people aren't being chosen. So, I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, the rumors are fucking crazy right now for Shock, and it's, well, we're approaching the next half of the season, so we'll see. Right, last segment of the day, of the week. Bren's Player of the Week. Has anybody got any suggestions? Albert, maybe we start with you if you have a suggestion for Bren's Player of the Week.
Yeah, for Fernando on Blizzard for bringing back. He's the one bringing back World Cup, and I think that's a pretty easy one for me. If I had to pick one, if it was up to me, I'd shout out Fernando on from Blizzard.
I think, well, I agree with that. I think giving and propping up these type of people, like, I think we all agree World Cup needs to be like an important staple of like Overwatch as a whole. Like, now that they have a live service model, it makes sense they're putting money into it. It brings in so much generation. You can make so much money off of it. They have the prize pool stuff. Like, it just makes sense. Like, please keep it and never go back.
Please.
Just please. Like, it just seems like begging at this point, but I'm on my hands and knees begging for more World Cup.
Begging!
Whoa! Moment, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Connor, unless you've got some sort of like comedy bit that you want to do right now. This one's very, very
this
is fucked up. This is fucked up.
It's not fucked up.
Okay, we don't have time to talk about this. I gotta go. I don't have time to talk about Sebastian's fucked up dream.
I think I could fix her. It would cost me an arm and a leg, but I think
no, it's not about fixing. It's not about fixing anyone.
It's
It's about eating the person. It's not about the person in the tweet. It's simply saying, would you eat a person if it was ethically sourced? And I would say yes. It's really that simple.
I would too.
Like, what's crazy?
There's a question for the chat right now and for the rest of the week.
Why
would you
I
eat
cannibalize?
a human if it was sustainably sourced in a high-end restaurant with a nice sauce on the side?
If they served a human chop with a nice dimaglaze.
Watch the menu. Watch the menu.
That was ethically sourced. Like, it doesn't matter. There's ethically sourced. Why do you need to eat human? There's so much meat in the world that you can eat. Why do you not want to eat human? Because it's fucking weird, bro.
What's weird about it?
It's human meat. It's
I don't find anything I don't find it strange.
Well, like I said, the week chat, you have a whole week to decide if you would rather do that, and you can let us know next week in the.
I also laid out all the scenarios. Go to my Twitter if you want to see the scenario.
Wow, plugging his Twitter.
Ethically sourced.
Ethically sourced. Connor's got a big tweet for him.
I put the explanation in the comments about how you would ethically source the human being.
Get that poll off my screen. Get that poll off my screen. These are fake answers. These are fake answers. They're all Scott fans.
Custa ratio, idiots. Well, people are saying yes just to fuck with us now. Like, no, if this poll goes the other way, I'm calling bias in the chat.
You're just not in touch with the human psyche, man. Most human beings, if you gave them the option of an ethically sourced human meat, they probably would try it.
No, they would not.
Just one time. Just one time. You don't have to keep going back.
I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't see why they wouldn't try it, man.
Just curiosity gets the best of most human beings. That's how we ended up where we are right now.
You just eat a nice, juicy thigh, and it was ethically sourced, and you're just like,
I'm pregging you, please stop. Like,
come on.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Albert, you get your player of the week. Fernando on Team Blizzard for starting the World Cup again.
Team Blizzard.
Team Blizzard.
Team Blizzard.
Team Blizzard.
I linked Solomon his Twitter in case he wants to pull it up. But yeah, he's he also does Overwatch League stuff as well. So he does.
Yeah. For bringing back World Cup, massive W for the Overwatch ecosystem.
Also, we definitely there it is. Sign into Twitter.
Sign
in. Also, there was some other stuff that we didn't cover, but Custa has to go. We have to.
He has to go.
Is there anything super important that needs to be hit?
I mean, I would say there was a couple of things, but like for example, on the event stuff, we kind of skipped past that like they're not going to add any more stuff until like 2024, supposedly.
Oh right.
Well, we have next week where nothing's happening between now and next week. We'll talk about it next week.
That's
true. So like maybe we fold that into next week. You know, there's also like supposedly the lethal to like the lethal Titan stuff and things like that. So like there's things that we missed that we can cross over into next week, which is why part of this show is we're in a little earlier because even there's more stuff because Custa's got to go. He's so important.
Custa's got to go. Blame
I'm
Custa.
so busy. You guys don't even know.
We have to leave. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Use code PLATCHAT for 20% off Manscaped. And Albert, I appreciate you joining today.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's been
appreciate
a good time.
Appreciate you guys for inviting me. Always.
There you go. All right. Goodbye, everybody. See you later. Peace.